All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday night. You know what that means. We're going to talk all the latest happenings here in the world of sports, give you the MLB update this week. Yankees, Mets get wins here on the same time. We'll talk maybe NFL schedule later on that has come out, maybe some post-mortem on the Knicks and much, much more. And for now, joined with two of our analysts here from Sportswire Radio, that is Rob Maraska, and also from the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, Mr. Chris Pizzea. Fellas, how you doing tonight?
How you doing?
Good.
Gotta
What's
be
going on?
gotta be both happy because Yankees find a way to get a win when Garrett Cole doesn't have his best performance, and the struggling Mets get a win here. But let's start with the Yankees here, Chris, because the Yankees, I think, got a much needed win. Everybody was kind of talking today. Well, they beat the A's and they look lethargic, but this was a game today that Cole doesn't pitch his greatest. I mean, he gave him 5 innings, 2 runs, but we had basically expected lights out here. And to be fair, this is a special Rays team, and I mean, talk about this big win here for the Yankees and just maybe how they can kind of use this here to hang tight and keep up here in the Joneses and the rest of this American League topsy-turvy race.
Yeah, it was definitely a much-needed win, especially after last night getting beat pretty bad, 8-2 to the Rays. But yeah, with Cole pitching, Cole gave up a couple of solo home runs in the first 2 innings. He didn't look as sharp as he has in the past, but he hung on for 5 innings. He was up to about 90-ish pitches. So I think after the 5th inning, they went to the bullpen. And we actually took the lead 4-2. But then, what's his name? King gave up a 3-run home run to give the Rays the 5-4 lead. And then, of course, Rizzo hits the big home run in the bottom of the 8th to take the lead. And then Wandy Peralta closed it out in the 9th, but this was a must win. I mean, if they're going to catch the Rays, which I'm not sure if they're going to, this was a must win. They're right in the wild card race, so I'm not worried about them not making the playoffs. They should make it as a wild card, but to get the division, it's going to be really tough, especially playing the Rays less games, the less divisional games this year. That just makes it that much harder to catch them.
And you play him 6 basically in a span of a week. You think about that.
Yeah.
And you got him almost 7. Half of the games already done with him.
7 actually altogether. 3 last week, 4. It'll be 4 this weekend. So they got to take, I was saying at least 2 out of, at least split. But now that you got this game, let's try to win these next 2. But tomorrow is McClanahan. He's a pitcher. So, and the Yankees just do not hit good pitching. It's as simple as that. We see that in the playoffs every year for the last few years now. And now we're seeing it in the regular season. They just don't hit the really tough pitching. So they're going to have to grind out some runs, especially with the injuries. Hopefully we'll get Sevy back in another week. And then, soon after that, we'll get Stanton and Donaldson, and hopefully that'll spark the team, because right now Judge hasn't hit since he came back. No. So, but we know he could do, once he gets going, we've seen what he could do last year. Not that he's going to hit 62 again, obviously.
I heard you say that on the Talking Rivals. But he can. That line you used, by the way, on the show.
Right. Not that he's going to hit that, but he can carry the team the rest of the season once he gets going. So we'll see.
Although it's so funny, I heard you before I get to some comments. You talked about Donaldson almost like he's a godsend, considering last year how awful he was in the lineup. Yeah. But it's almost like you're taking anything at this point. And I mean, Carlos Rodon, I was reading in the Staten Island Advance today. Maybe at some point we get him back, or at least starting that process. I was reading today, and any thoughts on that?
I'm crossing my fingers. Hey, if we get him back in August, for a couple of months, especially going into the playoffs, that'd be great. But I mean, listen, there was a report a couple of days ago that I forgot who said it, that they heard through their sources that he was not coming back this year. And then his wife came right back after that and said, that's BS. And this is a reliable source. So,
okay.
So hopefully he comes back. I mean, I'm just not expecting him back before August, to be honest, at the earliest.
Yeah, we spoke about this last week and, trades and such, but I think it's kind of early even to think about that because, again, if he comes back in August, okay, that's basically your in-house move. If he doesn't come back, it's a different discussion. And Judge yesterday looked terrible at the plate. You have to hope he comes back. And Drew Rasmussen, I mean, this guy last night, watching him a little bit, 21 straight scoreless innings against the Yankees. And for whatever reason, the Yankees can't get him. And the Yankee bullpen kind of touched upon here. I'll bring in Justin Gianelli in a second, but let me get to some comments. People want to say hello. Want to say hello to my very good friends over in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. That is the IMF, that is the Iowa Midwestern Wrestling Federation. The guys, of course, have a huge show coming up on May the 27th, the Springtime Rumble. And please give them a follow on YouTube at IMF Wrestling 666, also IMF_wrestling. And they are here. And Omen Black, the company's champion, and certainly Mr. Black was mentioned last night quite a bit on Sportswire Radio. And something tells me Mr. Black is going to be mentioned tomorrow night when the resident rock star Sean Jovi comes on to Sportswire Radio with us here and speaking about Wrestling Championship Entertainment's Vindication Show. But hello, fellas. And the legendary Joe Dell is with us. Obviously, we'll get to the Mets side in a second. Also, my very good friend over from the Rochester Wrestling Alliance, another promoter, Mr. John The Rock Jackson, our very good friends over there. Have another big episode coming up tomorrow. That's RWA Galaxy, 6 o'clock, I think, John, on YouTube. And also tag me on Facebook as well in it. But obviously, love John The Rock Jackson. And certainly we'll be having RWA coverage coming up here probably in about another like 3 or 4 weeks, John, right? So let me know about that. But I'll kind of warm it up for Brad Weiss before I get to Rob Maraska and Justin Gianelli, because Anthony Finkel's got what a lot of people's minds are right now is the New York Knicks. And good season for the Knicks. Definitely agree on that, but still a disappointing end. Yes, definitely a disappointing end considering if you watch the game and when Brad comes on, I'm sure he's going to be trying to wipe away some of the tears. But you could tell Randall didn't want the ball in his hand at the end of the game. Yeah, the Knicks had no offense tonight other than Jalen Brunson. I mean, literally, they did nothing other than Jalen Brunson. I think Jalen Brunson had almost half the Knicks' points tonight. So we're going to definitely get to that here for sure when the brute force comes on here. But Rob Maraska, I mean, the Mets story really isn't that much different than the Yankees. Yankees might have a little bit of a boost just because of their record and who they've played of late, but the Mets get a much-needed win against the Washington Nationals, and it's pretty pathetic, the state of the affairs of the Mets. I'm kind of coming along the side of Justin and Brad on last week's show because the Mets have now been shut out 7 times. They were shut out 8 all of last season, and they struggled for runs here tonight as well, but they do get a much-needed win. And talk about it and anything else this week was here for our New York Mets.
Yeah, that was barely a win tonight. It looked like they wanted to give that game away, too, in the bottom of the 9th. You know what? We have to go back to what was said last week. The Mets right now are not that good a ball club.
No, I mean, it's the Tigers, the Rockies, the Reds. You lose those series, and the Nationals, we crawled out for a win tonight. I mean, this was a 100-win ball club last year, and this team 8 winning 101 this year.
Yeah, they lost 5 straight series. This is the
first time since 2012.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable from what a difference a year makes, you know? Terrible series against the Reds. I mean, they luckily won the one game that Verlander.
Even the game on Tuesday, I'm listening to that game on the way home, and you should have won that game. They had, bases loaded, and they had the double play. And the next inning, I think they stranded, 2 guys on. And, I mean, that was just a quintessential Met loss of yesteryear.
Yeah, it reminded me of the early days of the Sports Report.
Yes.
When all we were saying was leaving men on base. The Mets
they left a lot of them. I mean, they stranded them, definitely.
And that's what they're doing. And I mean, when they go out and sign Gary Sanchez to a minor league contract, you know something's going on. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I don't know. They're not fun to watch right now. They're not doing much except stinking up the place. And, you know, they're lucky. Verlander, you know, he had that shaky first inning against the Reds, but then he got into rhythm and the Mets luckily won that game. But they could have easily got swept by the Reds.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I mean, the Mets just basically crawled out of there and got the one win. And, I mean, before I get to Justin, is a positive, though, Francisco Alvarez hits a couple of homers on Tuesday. You see some flashes. I mean, is that the one kind of positive with this team? And I'm going to come back to the Yankees in a few minutes. But, I mean, is that the one positive you may look at right now? And obviously, Alonso has got 13 home runs, and that's obviously going to be the talk most of the season on the bright side. But Francisco Alvarez for you?
Yeah, he's looking a little more comfortable than he did. I mean, last year when they brought him up, it was just awful and bad timing, and we know what happened against the Braves and then the Padres. But yeah, it looks like he's starting to get a little more comfortable. So let's see what happens. It's a positive note because no one wants to see them have to go and bring Sanchez up.
Well, I'll definitely talk about that here in a few minutes. Obviously, Justin Gianelli is with us, the first of two guests on the show that seasons for their teams just ended. Justin's yesterday also in heartbreaking fashion for the New Jersey Devils. Devils lose to Carolina, and Carolina returns to the Eastern Conference Final. But I'll get to that at the end of the show. But I'm going to talk about the New York Mets here. I mean, we're 4-13 going in to tonight's game. The last 17 games. This was a team, again, we talked about 101 wins, and despite blowing the lead against the Braves last year, they played pretty much, they coasted throughout the season. They didn't lose too many series. There wasn't too many lows, and yet we lost 5 straight series. Believe it or not, for the first time in over a decade. I mean, just it's a who's who of people that have struggled. Scherzer, even Senga yesterday struggles, and the lineup itself, Marte's down in the bottom of the lineup, and guys can't knock them in when it comes to runners and base, but they get a win tonight, and I get a feeling it's going to be the same thoughts you had last week on the show, and the Mets also crawled out of a win against the Colorado Rockies 1-0. So your thoughts on the state of the affairs of the New York Mets, Mr. Justin Gianelli?
Well, it's bad. I mean, the pitching is an absolute mess. You don't even know who's starting day to day because, the graphic yesterday said it all. You had 4 TBDs listed for the Washington series, and yeah, it ended up being Tyler McGill tonight on the mound. But this pitching staff has just been brutal, and they're not giving the bullpen any rest because they're not going deep into games. That's the real problem with this team. I know they've been shut out 7 times this year, but I gotta be honest, I'm not overly concerned with the lineup, especially because we're starting to see Brett Beatty and Francisco Alvarez really hit their strides. And you know what you're going to get from Pete Alonso. And despite his struggles, I know he hit the 3 RBI hit tonight. Francisco Lindor, I still trust and believe in Lindor. The only player in the lineup that really, really concerns me right now is Starling Marte.
Had a couple hits though the last few days. I mean, but still, not a good season.
He looks like a total mess right now, and it's good that he's batting down in the 6th spot because then you go Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil, Alonso, Beatty, top 5. Tonight with the lefty on the mound, they went with Tommy Pham 5, but and in due time we're going to see Ronnie Mauricio and Mark Vientos in the major leagues, but they're going to do nothing for this team if they can't pitch. And that's where my big concern is. You got the whole scapula situation and the neck spasms with Max Scherzer. He's iffy from start to start now. I
was hearing earlier in the week, like it's basically with him. Well, I've got this injury and I adjusted to it, and this is what I'm going to be. I mean, when you hear that, that's not the news you want to hear as a Met fan, especially.
No, and it was really interesting to hear his comments after the start in Detroit about how he was just happy to be healthy, and now you're seeing that New York Post article come out saying that he was dealing with the scapula, and it's concerning because of his age. It's concerning because he's supposed to be the leader of the rotation. He and Verlander are the co-aces, and so he's a question mark. Senga's a question mark of the big leagues. The rest aren't even question marks. They're just straight up garbage. And then there's Verlander, who is right now the only guy I trust in the rotation. And if guys aren't going to go deep, the bullpen's going to get exposed on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, right now this team's definitely in a world of trouble, and I want to bring in the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, and obviously I've got a lot to talk about with the Brute Force. I'll come back to the Mets with you in a little while, but just because, I know we'll get a Dolan time at the end of the show, but I did at least want to ask you, because it's obviously on the topic of people's minds, and Anthony Finkel, about 10 minutes ago, had posted this here. Good season for the Knicks, still a disappointing end. You could tell Randall didn't want the ball in his hands at the end of the game. Brunson wasn't afraid of the big moment. I agree on that. But for a minute or two, do you have a thought still? Are you basically alive? Are you basically able to compose yourself and get through the rest of the show? Because it was, I have to say, watching that game was very tough to see the Knicks, because Miami gave them plenty of opportunities to win that game, and they just couldn't do it. And I mean, you have a thought here on why the Knicks are going to be heading to the golf course permanently, probably on South Beach, starting effectively now?
I'm trying because I'm very depressed right now, very depressed. It's just a very difficult time to know that, you had an opportunity and you didn't get
This
it
was
done.
a winnable game for them. This was a very winnable game tonight. You had a 14-point lead early, and then you basically let Miami take the lead about 8 minutes later, and then you just couldn't make any shots. And this Knicks team,
Yeah.
I mean, the Knicks had, I think, 51 points other than Jalen Brunson? That's pathetic.
I mean, the way you started the game, at least you gave us some encouragement as Knicks fans, because they actually came out great. But just to know that they couldn't put together 40 points in about 2.5 quarters after the 31 points they put initially in the first quarter, pretty early in the quarter, was just pathetic. And listen, the old saying is you can't beat five with one. The New York Knicks were playing 1-on-5 at times in this game. Jalen Brunson was the only guy who could really score for them. You go down the list, and Julius Randle, ladies and gentlemen, I'll get into this a little bit more when I talk Dolan time later. But me and Justin have said it. I've said it on multiple occasions, and it better be the last time we've seen Julius Randle in a Knicks uniform. It's time for him to go. He is a serious issue. He does not perform in the playoffs. When the lights shine brightest, he hides in the corner. He took
a lot of bad 3-point shots. I will say that much tonight. He took a lot of shots that he was not necessary for, even when he handled the ball, that led to some unfortunate turnovers throughout the game tonight.
He just can't handle the New York lights and the pressure that comes with it in the playoffs. He can't handle it. He's proven it. And I think today, in this series, they just exposed him all series long. And then, the thing that Miami had that we didn't have was shooting. They had guys who could make shots. They moved the ball well, and they made shots. The Knicks.
Duncan Robinson had big shots. They had Jimmy Butler, obviously. Bam Adebayo. I think Bam Adebayo won Miami this game tonight.
I could go down the list of players, between, Grimes, who couldn't make a shot, Barrett, who was horrible, Randall, who was horrible, Josh Hart, who was just inconsistent, Mitchell Robinson, who couldn't guard Bam Adebayo the whole series.
He hit the 2 free throws, though, late, though. He hit those 2 free throws.
Yeah, but he let up 1 million points to Adebayo. I mean, between him and DeAndre Ayton, I think they both should go on vacation and hang out together for how bad they were against their matchup.
Well, they are. They're going on vacation, Brad. They're going.
Yeah,
but
they should go together. They should talk about how much they got their butts kicked. Because both of them just got absolutely annihilated by them.
How many times did the Knicks lose those 50-50 balls? I feel like every ball was 50-50. They lost them all.
But those are the reasons why they beat the Cavaliers, and they couldn't do that against the Heat. The Heat are an experienced team that have been in the playoffs before, and they simply just outworked the Knicks, out-toughened the Knicks, out-coached the Knicks. And I'll hold my thoughts for Thibodeau and everybody else later in the show. But I'm just depressed. I mean, you thought that, maybe you had a chance when you were the top seed, you had home court advantage, but the Heat just completely outplayed us.
Tonight was listen, with the flagrant +1, you got the points, and you got the basket right after that. You were down 2 with 54 seconds left, and you got the ball back. You had to stop. This game was right there for this team. Despite the way they played, this was a game they should have won.
Absolutely, but in the end, like I said, they were playing 1-on-5. You saw the Heat on that last possession completely converge on Brunson. He turns it over. And listen, you could be a superhero, but it's very hard against a good team like that to do everything that you could have. I mean, Brunson scored nearly half our points.
Yeah, he scored 41 and 92, I think, tonight. 41 and 92.
I mean, again, nobody else could have shown up. They didn't show up. Nobody on the team had any sort of, grind and presence like Brunson. No one had experience.
Hartenstein had some moments. He was
in this series, but today he wasn't good. He wasn't good at all, in my opinion. He fumbled and bumbled rebounds. He couldn't box out.
He did. Remember the one he fumbled? They were about to get the ball up court, and he had it.
Yeah, he couldn't. Both of them. And one of our biggest problems, Tom, is that we get no production from the center. I mean, look at how Adebayo makes an impact for Miami. Look at how Joel Embiid makes an impact for Philadelphia. Look at all the best teams like Brooke Lopez for Milwaukee. Between Robert Williams and even Grant Williams, who's really their center at times. Look at the impact that other teams get offensively from their big men, and look what the Knicks get. They get nothing. They get nothing from their big men. They're defensively, they couldn't guard Adebayo, so they were really dead weight on the court. And again, I'm going to reserve my Thibodeau later on, because Tom Thibodeau, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I'm a coach. He deserves a lot of this blame. He really messed up, and he really did not do what it took to win. And he should have realized that Randall couldn't handle it, that they couldn't guard, the big men weren't doing anything. I mean, there's a lot that I could talk about.
But if you listen to the game tonight, even up to the play where the Knicks had the ball down 4, and you're listening to J.J. Redick and Richard Jefferson, that was a great play called by Thibodeau. That was with the open 3 that basically was like way off the line. I mean, it's funny how the local call will always be different than what a national guy will say, but we'll definitely get into all that for sure. Obviously, Knicks season definitely heads south literally as they finish the season in South Beach, but we'll definitely come back to that. But, Rob Maraska mentions Gary Sanchez, and I'm going to come back to you, Chris, on this. And Gary Sanchez, obviously, this was one of the best catchers in baseball for a brief moment here a few years ago, and the Mets are so desperate right now that they take a feeler on this guy. I mean, Gary Sanchez, what do you make of this? I mean, I have to almost ask you, because you saw him more than anybody else. And will we even see this guy up in a New York Met uniform? I'm skeptical, at least from what I've heard and read. What do you think?
Hey, there's nothing wrong with taking a flyer on a guy and throwing him in AAA and seeing what he has, right? That's what San Fran did, and he was not good for the Giants AAA team, right? So, and you're only gonna catch some kind of lightning in a bottle here with his bat, possibly, because he's just horrible defensively right now. He used to have a great arm. I'm sure he still has a great arm. He's just not a good receiver whatsoever behind home plate. So maybe you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle with this bat, maybe to bring him up and he could be a backup catcher, DH. I don't know. But there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's not costing you anything. If he gets hot in AAA, you bring him up and you see what happens. But I mean, I wouldn't hold my breath and hope that that's going to be the savior. Your saviors are on the team right now, so those are the guys that are going to have to get going until at least June or July, and then when a trade could happen. More teams would be willing to trade, because right now, teams are not ready to move.
We talked about it last week on the show. Nobody's going to move anybody, especially now, because it's really a cluster in all of baseball, with the exception of Tampa. I mean, Tampa, I was hearing you and Patrick talk about this, and even the Pinstripe Chronicle guys on our sportnrm.com/player website. And I mean, listen, it's Tampa Bay and everybody else right now. Nobody's really distanced themselves. I mean, the Dodgers have played better of late, but there's nobody really that's substantiated themselves other than Tampa throughout both leagues.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And Tampa's been a good team for the last 5 years, so it's not really that surprising. They're playing better than normal, but they're still a pretty good team without this great start. So I think they'll come down a little bit, but I don't think they're going to slow down that much where you're going to be able to catch them if you're down by 10 games. That's why I was saying earlier that, these games against them now are like must wins. Like they got to get at least 3 out of 4 because they lost the first game. So we'll see. But like I said, the Mets and the Yankees, the same thing. They can't really make too many moves right now because nobody's going to trade with them. So you got to roll with what you got. You know what? Take your shot with Sanchez. Maybe he gets hot down in AAA and then you bring him up. But if not, listen, you guys got the talent on the team already. They just got to get going. It's just a matter of time.
And going into today, you look at it, and the American League East Yankees 9 games back, and everybody else is basically within 4 games of each other. The Yankees do pick up a big win today, so that wild card situation, it looks like all 3 could very well come out of the American League East. And I almost have to ask you as a side point here before I come back to the Met guys. I mean, I was reading the New York papers here, and I was also listening to some different things, whether it's on MLB Network. I heard Brian Cashman also on MLB Network earlier this week. I don't know if you caught him with Jim Duquette and Jim Bowden. And this Yankees bullpen, I mean, yesterday we kind of saw it as a perfect example of how far the bullpen has fallen. I mean, can this bullpen turn it around, you think?
I hope so. Just from their recent history, like not this year, but before this year, they're usually pretty solid. So I'm going to say that they are going to turn it around. Today they did pretty good. Other than King is the one that gave up the 3-run home run to the Rays to get rid of the lead. It was 5-4 after that, but I think they'll be fine. They're getting Canely back the end of this month, maybe the first week of June. So that'll help. And then Loizaga is probably not going to come back till end of July, maybe even August. So if they could kind of just hang on until then, and then you got Severino coming back in a week. When he comes back, then probably Brito will go into the bullpen or go back to AAA to be stretched out as a starter. So we'll see. I feel okay about the bullpen. I'm more worried about the offense, right? Because
I agree with you on the offense. I just think obviously Judge is not going to have the year that he had last year. Certainly Stanton, who knows? Donaldson, when you hear his name, it's almost heartburn. And then I think it was earlier this week, Hicks hits a home run, and everybody's kind of like quiet now. Do we want to DFA him? And I mean, even this lineup as a whole, it's like, I mean, I don't know really. I mean, it was a limited lineup in some ways last year, but because again you had the historic season from Judge, you were able to kind of tread water. But this lineup, I think you might make a fair point. I don't know what to say about this lineup right now.
Yeah, I mean, last year you got to remember they picked up Carpenter out of nowhere, right, and he just went crazy. They picked up Benintendi, so I don't know who they're going to pick up this year. I don't know who's going to be available. What kind of moves they're going to make, because they did get rid of a lot of their AAA pitching depth that they had. So I'm really not sure what they're going to do. I know Michael Kay had mentioned it, and I've read it in a couple of articles that possibly we might see Jason Dominguez, their best prospect, come up a little sooner than they were probably hoping next year. But we might see him this year at some point if a trade doesn't happen or if the trade doesn't spark the offense. Maybe they're going to bring this kid up a little sooner, maybe in July on the All-Star break, and see what he does.
Even if he's not hitting,
jump in, Justin.
Even if he's not hitting, because he's under. Last I checked, he was under 200 in Double-A.
Yeah, he was hitting 200, but I think the on base was high and OPS was high. That I don't think they're really worried about it.
No.
Yeah, he's in Double-A right now. So
all right, and some scores of note here for around the league. Orioles get a win over the Pirates 6-3. Pirates have definitely been struggling. They have come down to earth of late here. And also, Blue Jays beat the Braves. They beat them 3-0. Cardinals beat Patrick Trotty's Red Sox 8-6. Cardinals have won 4 of 5 all of a sudden, considering the National League Central. And the way the National League Central is for the Cardinals, they might just get lucky and hang in there because that division's terrible. And Pittsburgh, as I just mentioned, has really come down to earth here. I mean, at one point they were 20-9. They've lost 9 of 10. So we'll have to see what happens here. And some other scores of note here. Reds beat the Marlins 7-4. Mariners beat the Tigers 9-2. Angels 5, Guardians 4, White Sox 1, Astros nothing. Also, Cubs beat the Twins 6-2, and Phillies brute force your beloved Philadelphia Phillies 6-3 over the Rockies in the bottom of the ninth. Brewers 5, Royals 1. Rangers 3, Oakland A's 2, middle of the fourth. D-backs 4, Giants 3, bottom of the fourth. And some standings of note here going into action today. Brewers and Pirates separated by half a game. Cubs with their win of 500. They're a game and a half back now. Reds get a win. They're 3.5 back. So, Rob Maraska, we pile on some of these teams like the Reds and the Rockies, but because of the way things are in the National League, they're very much alive here. Also, Texas is still in first place. So some other news of note. Also, Joe Dell wants to say, good the Blue Jays took the Braves down the way. I guess, are you talking about Winfield? That's about the 1992 World Series. We're really going down, I guess.
No, I know what he's talking about. He's talking about when Winfield threw that baseball and killed the pigeon.
Now, I got something for you. Now, I actually got a comment for you, Brad, before I bring into some of the other guys, and that's from Mr. Omen Black himself, and he's actually having a little fun with your name, the Brute Force. In fact, I got to let you know, Brad, today I was on earlier here, I guess it would be last night UK time. It's morning now there with Wildfire Nate Reese, and there was a wrestler, and he brought up the brute force term, and I was like, "That's the brute force, Brad Weiss." And Mr. Omen Black, who's by the way the IMF World Champion, likes to say, "Hello, brute force. Good seeing you again on the show." So obviously you have a fan there, Mr. Omen Black.
Thank you, Omen.
Just so you know, he's 5'11", 385. So if you need a friend who's big like that, he's 5'11", 385, and he can move. He can definitely move in the ring. I can tell you, the Knicks probably could have used him playing some defense tonight. I mean,
yeah, they could have used him all right. They really could have used him.
Yeah, they could have used him, and that's why they're going to the golf course here. And I'm sure John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities group is with us here because I know he was messaging and he loves the wrestling talk, and I'm sure he's very excited that Mr. Black has joined us here. But, Rob Morasco, I want to come back to you because, Gary Sanchez we spoke about for a minute. Then I was seeing you on Twitter go back and forth about Buck Showalter. I was hearing some chatter about Buck Showalter. I was reading some of his comments earlier today in the New York newspapers about just the Mets' kind of struggles and where they are. And I mean, is that anything you make of it? Buck Showalter, fingers being pointed at him, and I mean, any thoughts on that?
It's ridiculous. Okay, people out there in Twitter land with the fire Buck already. He can't, win anything big. Give me a break already. I had to say that. It's stupid. He manager of the year last year, National League manager of the year. It's just stupid talk starting too early in May. It's ridiculous. He's not swinging the bat. He's not throwing the ball. It's not his problem that the pitchers are old. Let's just look at the staff. It's ancient. Senga, you know what? I think he'll be all right. He's just getting used to pitching in the United States, okay? He's getting used to it, so he's going to have good games, which he has. He's going to have bad games, which he's had. But this nonsense has got to stop. It's way too early with these idiots saying, "Fuck Buck, let's get rid of Buck." I mean, if you read those comments, it was just really stupid.
All right, well, we'll have to see. And speaking of John Gonzalez to brute force, it looks like a number of people want to say hello to you because John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities group also is here. And Anthony Finkel, I think people got excited when they saw you come on, and all of a sudden it's like the bat signal. When Brad Weiss comes on to Sportzwire, it's the wrestlers come out, John Gonzalez comes out, people like Anthony Finkel come out. And first, Anthony Finkel says, "Brad, why the long face?" Well, I think it's pretty obvious, right? It's pretty obvious why you have the long face.
It's a tough night, Anthony. It's a tough night.
I'm gonna be honest, that was a tough game to watch. I have to say, I actually watched the entire game tonight, and I was happy I stayed home and watched it. It was a very, very tough game to watch. And John Gonzalez, also of the Sports Authorities group, is tuned in, and he says, "Once I heard the Knicks were staying in the same hotel as the Brute Miami, I knew they were done." Now, is that true? Do you actually give them information, advice on the hotel?
No, I could tell you for a fact that's not true.
You can.
I can tell you for a fact that is not true. They're not staying in the same hotel as the one I was in.
Basically, you roll pretty high. You're a first class kind of guy. I could definitely see you in,
I'll openly admit that we were not in a first class hotel. We were in Miami. So I will say.
Were you in were you in like a motel? Were you in?
We were at the Holiday Inn. All right, that's where we were at. Okay, so we were.
Did you at least get the continental breakfast?
No, but the good part about that Holiday Inn was it was on the beach, so it was nice.
There you go.
The pool and everything, whatever. But no, the Knicks weren't at the Holiday Inn, so I'll tell you.
Maybe we should have stayed at the Holiday Inn. Maybe we would be talking about them playing.
I will say, the way they play, they should go to the Holiday Inn tonight, and that's where they should sleep. Honestly, that's where they should go.
Well, they're going to be sleeping somewhere, but it ain't going to be too longer in purchase. Yeah, that's the case here. I mean, Justin, obviously, I want to come back to you and obviously talk about this Mets team again and going back to this Buck Showalter thing and reading some of this stuff here on Twitter. And, I mean, is there a fair play to point fingers at the manager just yet, or it's too early for that?
I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, seriously. The guy wins 101 games last year. He gets national credit for National League Manager of the Year. And then all of a sudden, the Mets have a little bit of adversity, and now we want to get rid of the guy. I mean, this happens in every single sport. I mean,
Gerard Gallant, right? With the Rangers.
Exactly. You took the name right out of my mouth. Gerard Gallant gets fired. First time, I think it's a long time that the Rangers had back-to-back 100-point seasons.
Yeah.
And Gerard Gallant leads them there, and now he's out of a job.
Maybe Elaine Vigneault in 20, I want to say.
No, I think it goes back further. I think we're
Really?
talking
Okay.
further back, yeah. Listen, it's utterly ridiculous. Listen, I'm not going to say Buck is completely exonerated from this mess, but I don't think for a second this is all his fault. The Mets have a lot of injuries, and B, you got guys underperforming, right? You got Max Scherzer underperforming. You got Francisco Lindor for the most part underperforming. Starling Marte underperforming. There's too many guys that are underperforming, and I really don't think this is at the feet of the manager. It's not like he's out there making stupid bullpen decisions every day. He's making stupid in-game decisions. He's not, and yeah, maybe from a baseball standpoint, baseball is the least, I guess, tactical, except for the things I mentioned, like, pinch hitting decisions, bullpen decisions. Other than that, the manager doesn't really have that big of a role. It's really those guys got to go out there and play, right? He's playing Beatty every day. He's playing Alvarez now every day, right? We're getting the guys we want to see in the lineup, and they're just not performing. Over the team as a whole is just not performing. So I don't think it has a lot to do with Buck, but to just immediately call for his head with the first sign of trouble, I think it's just utterly ridiculous. You got to also have some stability in the organization as well, and you can't just run from the first set of adversity, and you can't just look to fire Buck Showalter.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And you look at the Mets, and one thing the Yankees have done good, and whether Yankee fans agree with this or not, the Yankees have been, if you think about it, the last, 25, 30 years have been a pretty stable franchise. You think about it, they've had 3 managers since Buck left the Yankees in 95. You had Torre, for 12. You had Girardi for, 10. Boone's in his 6th year. You think about general managers. Cashman's been there since 98. You had Bob Watson for a couple years after, and Stick Michaels was in the organization for decades. So you think about the Yankee front office and the manager situation, they've been a constant. Whereas with the Mets, we've had countless managers. I would need a scorecard over the past, 7 or 8 years since Terry Collins. We had Terry Collins, okay. We had him for a while, but we had Mickey Callaway.
Mickey Callaway, and then it was
Carlos Beltran. You want to technically count him?
If he counts. Then it was Luis But think about it.
Louis Rojas we had for 2 years, and we had Buck.
So Collins left after the 2017 season.
Yep. We had him for 7 years? We had him for, right? 7 years?
2011 to 2017. After the Jerry Manuel era. So you had Callaway in 18 and 19. It ended up being Luis Rojas in 20 and 21. After you hired Carlos Beltran to be the manager, and then he gets let go because of the whole cheating scandal.
Right.
And now Buck Showalter's in his 2nd year. And again, coach turnover. You're seeing it across sports. Think about it. Mike Budenholzer won an NBA championship in 2021, and now he's out of a job.
And his brother died, I think a week prior to that. I was listening to that on the radio, and it was I guess the timing was coincidence, but this was a guy that won a championship, won 60+% of his games, and he's always won in a franchise that hadn't won a championship in 50 years, and they got rid of him 2 years later.
Think about it. Nick Nurse led the Raptors to their only championship in franchise history. He's gone. He's gone too. So listen, it's brutal. You're not getting a lot of these long.
Even last year with the Islanders, Barry Trotz, right? Barry Trotz led the Islanders to their most success in their entire franchise's history, other than Al Arbor, and they got rid of him.
And they missed the playoffs last year. They had a lot of weird issues. They had the COVID, the long road trip to start the year because
the arena situation.
And they let Barry Trotz go, and it was really unfair to Trotz, a guy who's had a lot of success in the National Hockey League. But in baseball, you're also not in baseball too. You're not seeing a ton of longevity. Sure, Aaron Boone's been there since 18. And he's in his 6th season. The Yankees have been a model franchise in terms of stability, right? The Dodgers as well, right?
The Braves, I think, have been a model franchise as well. The Braves.
Dave Roberts is in his 8th season, been there since the start of 2016. And Don Mattingly was there for about 7-8 seasons after Joe, or 5 or 6 seasons after Joe Torre left. But the Dodgers have become stable, right? For the longest time, the Cardinals looked like they were stable. Now
Braves, I would definitely throw the Braves and the Indians, Guardians with Terry
Braves,
Francona. That's a turnover. He's been there a long time now.
Absolutely. So, at the same time, same could be said in St. Louis too, right? A manager now different from experience standpoint, because Oli Marmol's a first-time manager as opposed to Buck being a veteran manager.
Yep.
The first sign of trouble for the Cardinals, they're off to their worst start in years, and now everybody wants to get rid of Oli Marmol.
I was hearing that last week on the radio.
It's not fair. That's a team that made the postseason last year. The Mets
won 93 games.
Postseason last year, and you can't be quick with the trigger. You can't.
I think it's just because in sports now it's like we're a fast food society. We have to win. We have to go far. I mean, look at Gallant with the Rangers. Conference finals last year, 100-plus points this season, and it's his fault. And I have a bunch of comments here before I get to the Brute Force, Brad Weiss. Let me do that. Also, Crackstaff has reminded me that...
Real quick, sure. I'll definitely touch on that more later on. It's why I advocate for Lindy Ruff returning next season. I know he doesn't have a contract, so that could present an issue.
That's going to be an interesting decision, to say the least. And the Crack staff wants to remind me that Alain Vigneault actually did have 3 consecutive 100-point seasons with the Rangers from 2014, 15, 16, 17. But you were partially correct, because before that, the Rangers hadn't had back-to-back 100-point seasons since from 1970 to 1973. So that tells you that, listen, the Rangers... Wow. A lot, yeah. You think about the Rangers, right? And they've had a lot of seasons. I know they haven't won championships, unlike us, Chris, with the Islanders, but they've had a lot of postseasons, but not that kind of success. But I got a bunch of comments from different people. First, my good friend Donnie Pepin, and he says, "Let's go Blue Jays." Blue Jays got a big win tonight. Blue Jays certainly have gotten, I think, back on track the last, 8 or 9 days, kind of like everybody else, either like 3 games over 500 or 3 games under 500, really, with the exceptions, I guess, of the Orioles, the Dodgers, and the Rays. So big shout out to Donnie.
They're a good baseball team.
Yes, definitely. I think we all said that earlier in the season. Joseph Bostrom is here. Hello, fellas. How are you guys tonight? Let me get to a bunch of John Gonzalez comments here. Some serious ones at the Brute Force before I come into you and ask your thoughts on the New York. So these are actually good questions. One rumor I heard this week was Severino was heading to the Cardinals. Crazy or not, it could happen. I feel like I actually read that in the Staten Island Advance. It might have been yesterday's paper. I might have read that actually in the sports section.
I don't know if the Yankees would
actually have sports in the Advance, but there was a couple of stories.
I don't know if the Yankees would get rid of Severino. I mean, they're kind of in a they need a rotation. So, and with Rodon, you don't know when and if he is even going to come back at all. So I think if Severino's going to be back, I
got an interesting theory here, and I think John might be onto something. Would the Cardinals be interested in flipping Luis Severino for Jack Flaherty? Because he's had some struggles there.
No,
he's had his struggles, and they're starting to. And from what I know, that they're starting to lose their faith in him.
Yeah. Why would we want Flaherty? No thanks. And Severino's a free agent, so we're not really gaining or losing. If he had a bad contract, I would say
he's been brutal this year. I would say
but Severino's going to be a free agent after this year. So no, I don't think he's coming back after this year. I don't think the Yankees are going to resign him, but with the Yankees need in the rotation and the Cardinals need a starter, so it makes sense in that sense. But it doesn't make sense from the Yankee side because Yankees got nothing right now.
Right.
After Cole and Peralta.
I mean, again, you'd have to be taking a starter back.
Yeah, and they got no starters to give us back. So
I think that's what the article really, what the heart of the story was here, is that the Cardinals might be looking to make a move because of the National League Central, that they're very much alive despite their horrible record.
I wish we could trade Severino, but we just...
The answer in center field for the Yankees is playing in Somerset, Spencer Jones. That's what John
I think the Yankees' future outfield is going to be Spencer Jones, Jason Dominguez, and, of course, Aaron Judge.
Well,
so that'll be 2024, hopefully.
Yep. Hopefully, right?
At some point.
John Gonzalez says the problem with the Mets isn't Buck, it's Billy Epler, the GM. Is that a fair assessment for the Met guys on here?
I'm not going to completely kill Epler, but some of his trades have been a disaster. The free agent signings, I'm not going to blame them on the free agent signings. That they just haven't worked. Honestly, they just haven't worked out.
Yeah.
Because it's not fair. It's not fair to kill some moves now when we liked them at the time. Like,
right, we're a quarter of the season
Canna deal, the Eduardo Escobar deal. They were 2-year deals that we liked at the time. Yeah, they're not performing now, and that sucks. But we did not hate those moves at the time.
And remember something. He made a big move by not signing DeGrom. So that's
that was the smartest move.
And look at that. DeGrom is currently on the injured list and got pushed back another 2 to 3 weeks. So who knows when he's coming back. And I think when it comes to free agent signings, I'm not totally against Billy Epler. I do think his trades, especially the Darren Ruff trade, the Daniel Vogelbach trade,
he's gonna be having to live that down.
Put it that way.
Those two are.
I do want to get to the brute force, but I have a couple more comments. Let me read them off here because I want to get to a couple of funny ones from Omen Black. John Gonzalez says if the Yankees decide to dump Boone, the 3 names being mentioned are Mike Schilt, Don Mattingly, and Hensley Bam Bam Mullins.
I don't think they will, though.
They just signed Boone to an extension, so I don't think
there's any.
It's funny though that John brings it up only because I was listening, and I want to get to Omen Black. I see a couple of funny comments, but I was listening to him on MLB Network Radio. This was, I want to say, Sunday before the 1:00 game where the Yankees had the big lead and blew it, and it was funny because Bowden and Duquette were talking about Boone, and Cashman's line was, "Well, you think about what he's done in terms of what the injuries have been with this team, and that only goes so far. When you think about the money, though, the Yankees still shelled out in the offseason, so the Yankee fan base doesn't necessarily agree with what kind of Cashman was saying, and that Boone's done a great job despite all these injuries when the Yankees weren't supposed to be a scrappy team that was kind of fighting to be in the middle of the pack. This was a team
to me, this is more on Cashman than on Boone, right? Boone could only do so much with what he's got. I think Cashman,
right, and that might be the same point with it. Might be the same point with Showalter. I mean, if you want to go that and compare, maybe it's the same point.
Oh, absolutely. You could say it for both sides. With Cashman, I would say the last 5 years he's done a horrible job at building this team after that 1 year quote unquote rebuild that they had in 16, right?
Yep.
After 17, that great run, they had a chance to get Bryce Harper. They didn't sign him. They didn't sign Machado. I mean, you had future Hall of Famers there that said, "Yeah, we want to play for you." Harper was like, "Yeah, I want to be a Yankee."
He was saying that for years.
But is that Cashman or is that Hal Steinbrenner being a cheap, what?
Yeah.
Well, they
could have been either one.
If you think they kind of, I guess,
cowed
to the fans because they brought Judge back and they signed Rodon and Cole. I mean, they have done a couple of things.
You know what? You can say the same thing with the ownership with the Mets too, because think of the pressure that Cohen put on the Mets, right? He said, "I want to win a championship in the next 3 to 5 years."
Yeah.
So now the GM is like, "Whoa, all right, let's sign." Scherzer now. Okay, Scherzer. It's like I
don't think the Mets are in the same exact situation that the Jets are in, where they brought in Aaron Rodgers, and it's like, okay, you've got to win now. And with the Mets, it's not looking too good right now at the moment because these guys are hurt. But let me get to a few more comments.
But real quick, think about what Scherzer. I mean, with Scherzer was coming off a season that he couldn't even make his start in the playoffs because he had a tired shoulder. So now you're giving him all this money, and now look what's happened.
Well, you went off the back of the baseball card. You said the back of his baseball card.
The fundamental issue that we talk about all the time is the Mets don't have any pitching in the higher levels of the minor leagues.
No.
You have the Beatties and the Alvarez and the Mauricios and the Vientos all at the higher levels, but they're all position players. The Mets, a franchise known for developing their pitchers, right now are not developing pitchers.
They haven't had him, I hate to say it, in years. I mean, listen, Jacob deGrom wasn't even a prospect. I mean, you have to go back. I mean, Noah Syndergaard, I guess, would be the Steven Matz. Those would be the last two, I guess, big names, I guess. But I have a couple of comments before I do get to Brad. Anthony Finkel wants people to smash the like button if you're enjoying the stream. I appreciate everybody that liked on YouTube. I had a whole bunch of likes on YouTube and a lot of new subscribers on YouTube, by the way. And you can follow us on YouTube at Sportswire Radio. Also like us on Facebook. A lot of new followers, so I really appreciate the support. For you, the Brute Force, as I'm going to get to you in a second, Brute Force, keep an eye on Sunday show, which is 8 o'clock Eastern time. Cheap plug for us here, for our friends over at the IMF, because the House of Wolves might interrupt the poor excuse of, another champion of the past, Mr. Matthew Forsaken. So certainly that's a Dark Cryptic Wrestling versus the Iowa Midwestern Wrestling Federation. So that's certainly I know it's kind of above your pay grade, but
I will be saying I've been paying attention to these wrestling shows a little bit. I've been trying to
talk about you. And I think it's funny. They're actually. I think you came up last night because in a way I referenced you because of the size we had on Soldier GP, who's now a nemesis of Omen Black, and they might be rivals though for a moment, but they might be aligned. And when it comes to two other people that came on the show last night, but I'll leave that for a minute. But basically, you were kind of referencing the size of just your brute like size. But Don Gonzalez wants to go brute force versus Bad Bunny. I'm going to move off that, and I want to talk to you about the New York Mets because I heard Rob Maraska and Justin Gianelli talk about this team last week. You certainly said a lot about this team, and I have to say, I watched this Met team a little bit. I was reading in the New York papers here these last couple of days. I was listening to the radio, so I'm up to date when it comes to the world of the New York Mets for the first time this season. And I got to say, the product on the field so far is not that good. The results, we read them all. 5 straight series they lost for the first time since 2012. 7 shutouts. They had 8 shutouts all last season. The team was shut out. 4-13 going into tonight. Struggled and barely won here against a piss-poor Nationals team. I mean, is it fair to say that Buck Showalter should be on the hot seat? Is it fair to say that this team is on the ropes? I mean, how do you feel right now, the Brute Force? You're Mr. Confidence guy, and you're on the spot. I got to ask you, of all people, and how do you feel about this New York Mets team after all we've talked about here this past 20, 25 minutes?
Yeah, I got a lot to say again. And listen, unfortunately, for Mets fans out there, you might want to close your ears because the brute force is going to go off the confidence train and go onto the non-confidence train because I've seen enough of this New York
panic button. What's the panic button you were supposed to say? It's the panic button.
No. There's no more panicking. I've now seen enough. Where I think this team is doomed and ready for disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, let me answer a few of the questions that have been asked. So number one, Buck Showalter, no, it's not his fault. You're talking to a coach, all right, right here, that knows, right, when a team stinks, all right, and when it's not on the coach, okay? And right now, Buck Showalter is coaching a shitty, crappy team, okay? The team stinks.
Wow, Brad, that's like the biggest word I've ever seen.
The team stinks. Okay? Now, let me continue my comments and continue to go here. You guys talking about Gary Sanchez, I actually thought it was a great move by the New York Mets. Great. Not good.
What do you mean?
Great. Because everybody's talking about, he's not a great catcher. He can't. Who gives a damn about his catching ability? We can't hit. We have a DH batting average of 170 or something like that. All right? He's a DH. He could at least give us something that we don't have. Vogelback stinks. Canna stinks. All right? Anybody else you put in that DH spot stinks. All right? So if we could get anything, like Chris Pizzea said earlier, some sort of lightning in a bottle, at least give it a shot. I mean, you have no lightning. You have nothing coming from any of the players that you're putting in that DH spot. So that's my answer to that question. Now, I want to go to your comment, Tom, about how the Jets and the Mets are in the same spot when it comes to, teams that are desperate.
Yeah.
Right? The New York Jets at least have good units on the field. They have a great defense, okay? They have a solid special teams unit, okay? Their offense is now a lot, but what unit do the Mets have that make you happy right now and make you excited? The Mets don't have anything good.
You got Pete Alonso.
I'm just saying as a unit. I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about a unit. Their offensive unit is not good. Their pitching staff is not good. Their bullpen, I can't even name you half the guys they have in the bullpen right now. That's how bad it is. Okay? I mean, it is brutal. They have nothing to excite you. I mean, and again, props to Justin Gianelli, because I should have realized this earlier. Okay? I actually like the Marlins better than the Mets right now. You know why? Because they have a stronger unit when it comes to starting pitching. Okay, their bullpen. You look at the Mets bullpen, their bullpen.
And they win close games, by the way. The Marlins have been great this year in close games.
Yeah, I mean, the bullpen battle. It's not like anybody's so much better than everybody else. I mean, the one guy, that we had leverage was Diaz. He's not there. Okay, so it's not like their bullpen and our bullpen are so much, better or worse. Okay, the Marlins lineup is nothing that bad either. I mean, compared to the Mets lineup, I mean, what do the Mets get?
Yeah.
The Mets' best hitters are batting .218. You're talking about Lindor and Marte, right? Yeah, you got Alonso, sure. Yeah, you got McNeil, who's not hitting the same way as last year. Okay, you got Mark Canha, who's an absolute dump. He's a waste of space at this point. Vogelback, he's a waste of space. I mean, these guys are just bad. Okay, and it's time for us to begin to start to give up on them. Okay, because we've given them enough time. We've given Escobar enough time. We've given Vogelback enough time. Canha. Okay, and again, when you're talking about a team that wants to win now, Tom Bryce, you have to make win now moves. You cannot wait, especially with the Mets. What have they proven in there? And to your point, Tom, what have they proven in their history to be able to come back from this and do something with it? Nothing. Okay? So in the end, I cannot my patience for this team, I've lost it. And not only that, you talk about 5 straight series, losing them. It's a totally different story if you were losing series to the Braves, you were losing series to the Dodgers, you were losing series to the better. You're losing a series to the worst teams in baseball.
The Tigers, the Rockies, the Reds. I mean, this is
the Rockies, the Reds. You can barely scrap out wins against the Nationals. You're 2-2 with them this year, and you barely scrapped out 2 wins against them. You should really be 0-4. I mean, this is ridiculous. This team is horrible. I have given up on them at this point right now. My confidence level, I used to be Mr. Confidence. I want that name scrapped off when it comes to the New York Mets. You can give me that name, Tom Bryce, when it comes to the New York Liberty, who I'll be gladly representing next week. I will not be representing the Mets anytime soon. Citi Field will have to pay me to get me to go to the games at this point. I am pissed off and livid at this team, and that is the end of what I'm going to say about them today. They piss me off. They are horrible, and they can't beat teams that have me playing in the field.
Okay, so then should I rename you to Mr. Panic Button?
Listen, no. What you can name me right now is I don't even know. I don't even know what to say about it. I don't know. Name me that. I don't know what to think of this team.
I'm an Ozzy song fan.
I try to listen to
brute honesty. How about
I try to listen to guys like Chris Pizzea, Rob Moroska, Justin Gianelli. When they tell me, guys, it's May, we'll be okay. Like, it's too early. I'm done with that. They've proven to me that, listen, the schedule's not going to. You're not going to see the Tigers again, are you?
No,
right?
That I agree with you. I agree with you and I agree with some of the guys here tonight on that, the Met guys on it, because I was actually talking to somebody this morning, and they said, "Oh, well, what do you think about the Mets?" And I'm like, "Well, I started watching this team really the last 10 days, and when you play the Tigers, you play the Rockies, and you play the Reds. These are bottom feeders. I know the Tigers might be in second place in a very flawed AL Central, but you lose these series and." Put up nothing and get swept in some cases. It's like,
and I just want to say this quickly before we continue.
Sure.
That when it comes to Chris and the Yankees, you know why I could at least be, in that kind of it's okay, we'll be fine type of mood. At least they're competing against some of the better teams like the Rays, right? They're at least putting up fights. They're winning games. They arguably should have won the series last week, and they blew that.
Nothing lead. Yep, and lost that.
Yeah. At least they're putting up. The Mets are getting shut out by the Reds and guys who have never heard before pitching, right? They can't beat the Tigers. The Tigers are coming back on them like they're the Braves.
Even the Rockies, I was listening to the national MLB guys overnight, and they're saying, well, the Rockies have played better. Ignore the record. I'm like, who's on the Rockies that should have said to you that the Mets should have lost 2 of 3 and scratched out a couple of Rockies?
Just name them.
That was my point. I'm listening, and I'm like,
CJ Cron.
Listen, as bad as the Mets situation is, they're a half game out of a playoff spot.
Well, absolutely. Listen, I do think
that's what you got to think about.
But here's the thing, Chris, and you're right about that. And I know, listen, I try to listen to you guys and keep the confidence, all right? But this is the problem. When I'm getting mad and getting upset, Chris, this is supposed to be a team that's supposed to be winning in the playoffs. Winning series, doing big things. They're supposed to be showing us that they are capable of that. What have they done to do that as a team? This is not Buck Showalter. The guy said, he's not fielding. He's not hitting, right? I mean, the guys on the field are miserably disappointing. I mean, it's miserable. I can't even watch a whole game. It's miserable watching them play.
I guess on the manager, and I do have a bunch of comments, and I'll gladly read them off in a second from John. But I guess the issue is that in this town especially, with the exception of the Yankees, and the Yankees haven't won in 14 years, and even the Giants technically, I mean, we're so starved for wins. The Mets, we haven't won a World Series since '86. We haven't been close many times. We watched the Knicks tonight, right? This was the first time they were kind of competitive, right? You look at the Islanders, and the Islanders up until recently had no real success. I mean, the Jets, we talk about the Jets all the time, haven't been into a Super Bowl since Namath. So if you talk about all the sports, I mean, the Rangers have had their moments, the conference finals last year, cup finals, a couple of conference finals with Tortorella and Vigneault since '94, but that's it. So I think it's what it is in this town. We're really, and the Nets have done nothing since they've moved to Brooklyn to really be competitive. I mean, they've been to the playoffs, but nothing of real substantial deep runs. We're kind of starved for like that moment, that feel good. And with the Mets, we win 101 games last year, and it got taken away from us because we didn't win the division.
They crashed and burned at the end of the season. That's the problem.
Exactly, and it left like a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth, and it's kind of rolled over. And
I think it kind of stems from. I think there's a little bit of a carryover from last September. Remember how we marveled in the fact that the Mets had this like super easy September schedule. They
fumbled it away. The Marlins they struggled with the Cubs.
The division on a tiebreaker because they lost 10 games to 9 to the Braves because they finished tied in the standings, and then they go out by losing 2 out of 3 to the Padres, and now they've been bad this year. But I will say, as bad as things are, this might be a hot take. This might not be a hot take. The Mets have a better chance to make the playoffs than the Yankees.
That's a tough one.
Here's my reasoning.
All right, go ahead.
I believe the AL is stronger. The NL to me seems very weak. I still think the NL Central is a one-team playoff.
I agree with that. The NL Central
the NL
is
West is probably only going to get the Dodgers and the Padres. I still don't really buy Arizona. Then what's going to happen?
You got two teams.
I still think the Mets could finish third in the National League East. They might fight with somebody like St. Louis or Milwaukee if St. Louis gets their act together.
Well, St. Louis has got to make up a lot of ground. I think St. Louis's path is the National League.
Think about it. The Cubs are not that great. The Pirates are coming back to earth. It's probably going to be the Brewers' division. But
I think Milwaukee.
That last wild card spot, that 6th spot, may benefit the Mets even as they ride this mediocre.
It almost reminds me of last year's AFC last wild card. You're going to probably have like 7 or 8 teams that are bunched up between like 5 and 6 games. But in the American League, it's going to come down to.
Think about it right now. Tampa is going to make the playoffs, right?
Absolutely, 30-10. They play 500.
Houston's going to figure it out and make the playoffs. I believe Seattle will figure it out and make the playoffs. All right, so that's 3 teams right there. Somebody's gonna win. Somebody's gonna win the Central, right? Probably Minnesota. We'll give Minnesota the Central.
Yeah, somebody's gonna win. I'm not convinced any of them.
But think about this: the way things are going right now. How are you going to tell me Baltimore's not a playoff team?
Yeah, Baltimore.
How are you going to tell me that the Blue Jays are not a playoff team?
Their pitching is not good, so I could definitely.
There's
something wrong with Toronto.
I think that'll fix itself out, especially if Bassett can give more performances like tonight. That will assert itself out.
I think Boston's the team I don't trust in the American League.
I agree with that, but I also don't think there's going to be 4 AL East teams. And hey, you know who's playing good baseball right now? The Texas Rangers.
The Texas Rangers. Yeah.
You know who's playing decent baseball right now? The Angels.
Yeah, I mean,
and their pitching's
been okay. That's not going to.
Their pitching's been okay. That won't actually.
That
Texas.
Won't
I mean, they made some moves.
I could see Texas maybe lasting more than the Angels.
I agree.
Surprisingly,
I agree, and I think it could be Texas, Houston, and Seattle all being playoff potential teams.
No way. At the most, they'll get is 2. At the most, I don't even think they'll get 2.
Watch Texas. Watch DeGrom be out for most of the season and come back in late August and pitch lights out. Just watch that happen.
Well, they made some moves. Simeon's played well for them. They got Seager. I mean, they're in a new ballpark. Maybe they've turned the corner. I got a bunch of comments here because I'm going to move on here, but I have a ton of comments here. John Gonzalez wants to say the Brood is on fire tonight. Escobar sucks. I think most people at this point do not want to see Escobar.
He hardly plays, though, now with Beatty playing most every day.
Mets should have traded for Sean Murphy. Look at him now with the Braves. I was watching him.
They're not going to do that with Francisco Alvarez.
Right.
Yeah.
I was watching I was watching. I think it was him, and I was actually. If anybody caught it, I actually caught a little bit of the one NBC game they played this year was the Orioles and Braves. Almost looked like a kind of a sleeper World Series preview, and I was watching him in that Braves team, and John is definitely right that he's a special player. Brute saved some for Dolan time. I'm going to get to that in a little while. I'm going to transition in a few minutes to the NFL. I'm going to get to a Rob Maraska closer because I do want to get to the NFL schedule. A lot I actually want to talk about that because I got some notes for that. And I want to ask the football guys on here. $86 million for two aging pitchers. Yeah, you know what? Verlander and Scherzer. I mean, that's going to be. That's why I said to me it's similar to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you brought in Aaron Rodgers basically for what, 2 years at most, and you've got Verlander and Scherzer for what? I guess Scherzer what, a year and a half more, and Verlander a year and a half more, right? I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I see more hope at this point in time for the Yankees and the Mets. Yankees have a better farm system, and Rob Cleaner the Rock. What's the Cleaner the Rock?
He's still talking about Winfield throwing the rock at the pigeon and killing it.
Oh God! Well,
talking about.
Well, today in my backyard there was apparently two, I guess was it birds or that like carried a pigeon or something and killed the pigeon in my backyard. It was I was actually about to go live on Sportzwire, and I'm like, what's that noise? And it was two, I guess, two black birds, I guess apparently killed a pigeon or something. It was just one of those odd moments. So okay, well, whatever that may be, good stuff there. I am going to transition in the interest of time to the NFL schedule because there's a lot I actually have notes for, Rob. So I'm going to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say, and the floor is yours, my friend, and looks like we'll be doing a lot more baseball starting next week because there really isn't any locals left to talk about in the other sports. So looks like baseball will be the king here on Sportswire for the next couple of months.
Yeah, 2 quick points about other games. Cedric Mullins hit for the cycle tonight for the Orioles, talking about the Orioles. And
they're a good ball club. I was watching them Sunday. They were a good ball club. They're a good ball club, the Baltimore Orioles. They're a good ball club.
And Chris Bassett, tonight he pitched the first 9-inning shutout for the Blue Jays in 8 years. Think about that.
And the last pitcher to do that, last Blue Jay to do that was it
for the Blue Jays?
Yeah,
Stroman. Yeah, I don't know who the last pitcher was.
No, you don't know. Okay.
I just thought that was that was a pretty interesting fact. But anyway, you know what? The Mets, yes. The Mets, I agree with Brute. They drive me crazy. It's last year, at least you knew they were going to come back. Anytime they were down, they had a chance.
They were a resilient team last year.
They won series last year.
They were exciting. Now you're falling asleep with this team.
But don't forget, we got the Rays next week. We got the Guardians. Now we're not seeing these pushover teams.
Yeah,
what do we do then?
Let's see what happens with those games. I mean, even with the
Cubs, we play the Cubs. The Cubs are improved this year. The Cubs, they're going to be competitive this year.
Cubs have a real good lineup.
Yeah, the Cubs, I think they're going to probably be a 500 ball club this year, right around it, and they're going to be in it in their division, and that's going to be tough for the Mets. They've got some tough games coming up here.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm going to have another contest pretty soon.
Okay.
Probably going to announce it next week, next Friday's show, and that's about it. Next football season, though, I do want to send in my picks with you.
All right. Well, we're going to have the football season. It's not that far away. Today is May the 12th, so that means we're actually technically less than 4 months away from the NFL season. The NFL season goes a lot longer, it feels, than it
and the belt is going to be up for grabs this year, right? There's going to be a belt.
I got a lot on the schedule I want to get to here.
Belt's up for grabs, and listen, and the more people that vote, by the way, the less chance John has to win. So let's make that happen.
I was right up there with the leaders last year, so yeah, I'm going to make.
All right, so yeah, we'll slot you in. Definitely, I'll take as many people as may be, and I want everybody to follow you at R. Maraska. And look, we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully, Mets turn the corner. We'll see about the contest. You're going to resume a contest, and Hollywood's box office season continues. Early summer, we had Guardians of the Galaxy last week. Fast and the Furious is next week. Transformers, Spider-Man, Indiana Jones, and Anthony Finkel on that note says the napkin is ready for the new season.
Oh, God.
I'm on the phone yesterday. He probably has the new napkin as we speak. So great stuff, Rob, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you next week.
Good show, guys. Catch you next week.
And that was Rob Maraska here to talk all things related here to baseball.
Anthony Finkel had that napkin. I don't know about that this year. I think it's going to be illegal.
Well, I mean, we'll have to find out here, but moving over to that here for a few minutes, and the NFL schedule comes out, and I mean, interesting here. I guess the first time ever we get a Black Friday game on Friday, 3 o'clock, and it involves the New York Jets against the Miami Dolphins. And Chris, I'm sure you spoke a little bit about this. Well, maybe I guess on the timer because you sent me the Liftoff Jets show yesterday. I guess maybe you would have spoke about the schedule of some sort with Andrew Golden, and I'll obviously play it over the weekend because I'm live a couple of different times actually now, so I look forward to that as my opener. But I mean, what do you make of the schedule? The Jets are on Sunday night for the first time. I didn't realize this since 2011. They're playing 6 primetime games this year, and I guess in the last decade, have we played 6 primetime games? I mean, that's an interesting conversation, but a lot to digest. Locals certainly are a big part of it, and I mean, what are your impressions of this, along with the first ever Black Friday game here between the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins?
It makes sense for a Black Friday game, right? For Amazon to carry it because that's their big night. Yeah, that's their big day selling stuff. So, but looking at the schedule for the Jets, I mean, their first few weeks are going to be tough, right? They open up home against Buffalo, then they go to Dallas.
Chiefs on October 1st, Sunday night.
Yeah, they come home to play New England and Kansas City. Then they go out to Denver. I'm probably gonna be at the Denver game again this year, and then they finish with Philly before the be another tough week. But I listen. If we stay healthy and don't get hit by injuries like we did last year, this is a good team, man. This is a team that's gonna win 12 games, 13 games if everything falls right. But unfortunately, we've seen with the Jets, we've getting killed with injuries the last few years. So I'm just hoping we could just stay healthy because this is going to be a special team if we stay healthy. Because we got
13 games for the Jets. I mean, in franchise history.
Yes.
They've done that, once maybe? Twice? I mean, 12 wins in a season has not been done often for the Jets. I know.
I think they could do it this year with the defense that they have. And, of course, with Rodgers. Listen, if he goes down, then we got zero shot at that happening. But if these guys could stay healthy, I think we got a chance at 12, 13 wins. I mean, I know I'm thinking positive here. I know that.
I got to be honest. I think at 10. I think based on the schedule, I think if the Jets get 10, I would say that's very doable. 12.
They got to win more than 10. They have to. The over and under is going to be more than 10.
Yeah, it's
if
probably
the over
more
and
10.
under is not at least 10, then you got to bet the over.
Yeah.
Like if they say 9.5, you got to go over. That's insane.
I don't know though. That's the schedule. There's some games on it. I mean, I'll read them off real quick before I get to the rest of the guys. Monday night, September 11th, Bills Jets, New York interstate matchup. You got the Cowboys in Dallas. You got New England. Jets always struggle against New England. You got Kansas City at home, October 1st, Sunday night. Jets and Broncos. Okay, I'll give you that one. Jets Broncos. That should be a winnable game.
That's our first win.
I don't know. I mean, New England's 50-50. I'm not saying they're all losses
this year. No,
I'm just saying though that these games are like you got the Eagles, you got the Giants. I mean, you got the Chargers Monday night. You got the Raiders in Vegas. Okay, that's a win. You got Buffalo in Buffalo. You got Miami Black Friday. Atlanta should be a win. The Texans should be a win. Miami is going to be tough. Commanders should be a win. Cleveland Thursday night.
Tough game. It depends.
If it's cold in Cleveland, going to be tough. And you got the Patriots and to be determined. I mean, I don't know if they're going to get 13 off that schedule. I think 10's doable. I mean, Anthony Finkel kind of agrees with me. 10 to 11 win team. I kind of think the same here. Giants 9-8. I'll get to the Giants in a second. But I mean, Justin, that's a really optimistic take. I'll take 10 wins off this schedule. That'll probably get us into the playoffs. And I mean, Jets have a lot of primetime games. 6 of them. First Sunday night game since 2011. A lot of Monday night games. Black Friday first one ever. And I mean, what are your impressions on the Jets schedule then? I got to just go with it then.
All right, first off, if the Jets are going 10-7, then this season's a disappointment. I'm just going to be totally blunt. You know what?
Thank you.
But one thing Chris said that we got to stop saying is that the Jets have a tough schedule. No, the Jets are the tough team on the schedule. They are going to be expected to win these games, regardless of who the opponent is. Yeah, sure. In retrospect, is Jets-Chiefs going to be a tough game? Of course it's going to be. But you know what? They got that game at home. That game's not at Arrowhead. Go win that game. You know what? Go beat Buffalo on Monday night to start the season.
Absolutely.
are certain weeks going to be a little bit more difficult? Yeah, of course. They're not going to go 17-0.
We beat Buffalo last year with Zach Wilson.
Exactly. And guess what? They should have won the game in Buffalo as well.
Right. Exactly.
So, listen, there are no excuses for this team. 12-5, 13-4. Give me the AFC East division title, please. That's what I'm looking at with this team. The Jets have the roster. Yes, the quarterback's older, but he's a future Hall of Famer, former 4-time MVP. But the core around him is very young and very talented. The Jets are going to have a great defense. They got great wide receivers to go with Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be able to spread the ball around. They're going to be able to score points. This should be a really special season for the Jets. How far it goes past the regular season, that's, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to be a Super Bowl team. But I will say anything less than 12-5 in my book is not good. It's not good enough.
We'll see. I mean, the Jets are actually ranked with the second toughest schedule in the league. I'm going to get to that. I have a bunch of
He's our deciding one here.
Well, I wanted to say it because I'm so fascinated, and I have a bunch of comments here. So let me get to them before I get to Brad. John Gonzalez says, "I will be ready for all challengers. More people for me to beat." Anthony Finkel says, "Let's go Jets." Jets playing on Black Friday. Yes, absolutely. Finally getting some respect on our name. Jet up. John Gonzalez has the Jets at 11-6. Yeah, I mean, maybe 11. Jets versus Giants, October 29th, Halloween costumes. Let's do this. Yeah, maybe.
By the way, another benefit to this Jets schedule that I love. 2 games outside the East Coast, East Coast time zone, which is the Vegas game and the Denver game.
Yep.
And they play 10, I repeat, 10 games at MetLife Stadium because they play 9 home games.
Giants. And then 1 game against the Giants.
50-50 crowd at least with Jets-Giants.
Yeah. Anthony has them 10 to 11 win team. Giants, I'm going to get to Giants next because the Giants schedule is fascinating because I actually have a lot of Giants notes. Anthony Finkel likes the tough talking. John says, tight end the Jets drafted. Zach Kunt is a stud, 6'7". I think you and Sharman spoke about him.
Watch what you just said.
We'll be lucky. He'll be lucky if he gets on the practice squad.
Well, we'll see.
He's a physical freak, but he's not a football player. Well, you know what I mean?
There's a
if you listen to the podcast,
yes,
playing him more.
Okay, well, I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to be on a couple of times. You're going to be my opener. So I'm on, I think, like 2 different times this weekend. So I'm actually, we'll see how I hold up. But let's get to the Brute Force, bro, because I am so fascinated because I hear these guys, and they're taking the real positive approach here. I'll be happy with 10 wins because that means I'm in the playoffs looking at that schedule. And most people think it's the second toughest schedule in the league, well, behind the Giants. So the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, I mean, your take is always interesting when it comes to the New York Jets. And what do you think about this Jets schedule, and where do you see this Jets team?
I see the confidence in
Well, it's the first confident statement I can make today because I had the Knicks, all right, and I had the Mets. So I didn't talk a lot of confidence there.
Well, Liberty, you had Liberty for a second. You were confident.
Oh, don't worry. Next week, I'm going to light it up with confidence with the Liberty, all right, because that's going to be their first game next week. I'll be very confident then. With that being said, I'm very confident with the Jets. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Can you put the comment up that John Gonzalez put for their record?
Yes.
All right, because I hate to say it. I agree with John Gonzalez.
Oh.
I agree with John Gonzalez. I don't know. I don't like uttering those words, Chris. All right, but I actually think he's right that the Jets are going to win 11. I actually think it could be 12. I think I'll give it 11 or 12. But going through the schedule, I felt pretty comfortable with that 11. Oh, I'm going to get to the Lions. Don't worry.
I have them on my list.
I'm going to get to my Lions. Don't worry. All right, but I think 11 or 12 is safe. I went with 11 when I went through the games. I actually am quite confident, Chris, in their early season schedule. I actually have the Jets winning the first 3 games. And I think that, that Bills game, they're going to be ready. Aaron Rodgers is going to be ready to show up. The Cowboys, they play their best at the beginning of the season. But with that being said, I think they won't be ready for the Jets early in the season. I think the Jets are a better team than the Cowboys. And I just think it's time for us, like you said, Chris, to finally beat those damn Patriots. It's got to happen. In fact, that's the game I'm considering going to. I haven't been to a Jet game in years. I think that
right? You've been for 5 years, right? 5 or 6 years.
it's been a while, Tom. I mean, it's been a while. I don't remember. I was probably like in middle school or high school when I went the last time.
Well, you
So-
played at St. Joe's for 4 years. I mean,
I didn't go when I was at St. Joe's. So I do.
That I know. I covered you at St. Joe's. That I know.
I do think that it's time for me to go to a game. I think I'm going to go to that Patriots game. I think it's time. It's finally time. It's finally time to get Matt Hurd out of my ear about the Patriots and all these other people. It's time for the Jets to beat them. I think they'll finally do it.
Well, Gordon Schroeder, by the way, Mr. Denver Bronco. I mean, that's a fun. We should probably have.
That was a toss-up game for me, but I think the Jets will win that game as well. You know, playing in Denver is never easy. And I think they'll be better with Sean Payton. So, you know, if I went down the list, I could probably, but I'll save that for weeks in advance when we start predicting the records. But
sure.
I will say I'm confident in the Jets winning at least 11 games. I think that's the minimum. And I say that they could get to 12. And you know, to be optimistic like Chris and Justin, I think, you know, with a couple of those toss-up games, you know, maybe you get a nice win potentially against the Chiefs. Maybe you win a game that maybe you weren't expected later in the season, and then you get to 13. But I'm confident no less than 11. But I'll let me get a little bit of a plug quickly to my next comment. They're not the only team I think is going to win 11 games.
Oh, you know what? I know that there's one of those teams is going to be here. We'll get to them in a second. And John says if the Jets O-line plays well, the Jets will succeed. That's the question. Jets offensive line, obviously.
I will say the Jets offensive line will be improved naturally by the quick release of Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
You know, with the questionable decision making of Zach Wilson and you know not being able to just process the game very fast, you have to pass protect a lot longer, right? When you have a veteran like Aaron Rodgers who knows where he's going with the ball, knows his reads, knows his pre-snap audibles, everything just runs a lot quicker. So I think Aaron Rodgers will improve the offensive line himself.
Okay. Fair points. I mean, I think obviously, again, everybody seems to be. I think the Jets will make the playoffs. I'm not ready to say 12 or 13 wins, but I do want to get to the Giants' schedule real quick because the Giants also have a bunch of games, and I think, guys, the Giants have the toughest schedule. They actually have the toughest schedule in the league, technically.
What is the seven of the first 10 on the road? I think that's just
first time. What's since 1990? I read somewhere. Right, 1990 is the first time 7.
And one of those home games is against the Jets, which isn't even really a true home game because you know that there's going to be a ton of Jet fans.
Right.
You got Thursday night against the 49ers, September 21st. They open on Sunday night's schedule with the Cowboys. You got the Seahawks October the 12th. Yeah, right. Giants, Cowboys. You got the Bills Sunday night, October 15th. Then you got another Monday night game, Packers, December 11th. You got Christmas, Eagles, 4:30. So the Giants got some, interesting games. Off that, Giants went 9-7-1 last year, Chris. And, I do think the Giants have a tough schedule this year. And the league thinks so, apparently, based off everybody's win percentage. And where do you see the Giants?
Yeah, I think 9 wins. If everything goes right, I think they could win 9 games.
That's what John Gonzalez thinks.
Right. It's going to be a tough 9 wins, too. It's not – I'm saying, there's a couple of games where I could go the other way, too. Because now you got to remember, you play.
Yeah, Miami to me is a toss-up game. They're on the road against the Raiders. You got the Patriots. You got the Saints. You got the Eagles again. You got the Rams. You got the Eagles twice in a span of 3 weeks. You got a lot of games here that are like iffy kind of games almost here with this team.
Yeah, like the Washington games, they got to win. Those two they got to win.
Seattle, Dallas, I think, is a toss-up game, kind of.
You got to at least split with Dallas at the very least. Arizona, you got to beat, obviously.
I think Arizona, you got to beat them. I agree with that.
San Fran is kind of I know they're really good, but we got to see what's happening with their quarterback because is it going to be Purdy? Is it going to be, Lance? Is it going to be Sam Darnold? So it's still probably a loss, but, that's going to be a tough game. I don't think they're beating Seattle.
Well, I guess you could say in defense, the 49ers, if you notice, the last few years have actually been slow starters. So maybe you catch them early in the year. If you think about the last couple of years, they've been slow starters.
Maybe they'll catch Miami, luckily, if Tua gets hurt early.
That's my 50-50 game. That's one of my 50-50s. Giants-Miami is a 50-50 game.
Yeah. The Raiders they should beat. I think they're a better team than the Raiders. Dallas, like I said, they should at least they at least split with them. They got to beat Washington twice. They got to beat New England. Green Bay, they should be able to beat. New Orleans, I think they'll be able to beat. The Rams, they should be able to beat.
I don't know that they're winning that game in the Superdome.
Yeah, maybe because it's on the road, but they.
New Orleans should be good with Carr.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest. I'm looking at the Giants, and again, like Brad said, we don't need to do the schedule season.
9 wins. Yeah, that's a good.
I got them between 7 and 10 anywhere. They could go anywhere, and probably split the baby in half. 8 or 9
Right, it could
wins.
go the other way. It definitely could go the other way.
Danny Dimes is garbage. I keep saying that. Eagles 13 and 4. The Fish have a good team. Yeah, I think Miami will be one of those like 9. What did they win? 9 last year, right?
Yeah.
9 with
I
9.
think Miami will win 9-10 games.
It all comes down to keeping Tua healthy, right?
Yeah,
if he stays healthy, yeah, they'll win 9-10. Definitely.
They won last year, and they kind of find ways to win. And they won last year differently than they won the year before. But, I mean, Justin, Giants, jump in, Chris, go ahead.
I'm saying, who's Miami's backup now?
Mike White.
They're in deep trouble if Tua gets hurt. Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they know something that we don't know.
Making a joke of it. They're in.
I know. I'm just saying. Maybe they know something we don't know that. But I mean, Justin, a thought on the Giants and their schedule. Obviously, they have a number of like 50-50 games. I think Chris is absolutely spot on. A lot of 50-50 games there. What do you think about the Giants? Do they take a step back or what?
All right. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Uh-oh.
This team's going to win 6 games this year.
6.
That's why I asked.
First of all, I don't think the roster is all that great. First of all, they've still dealt with cap issues, right? They didn't make too many big splashes in free agency. Their biggest free agency was keeping Daniel Jones. And to be honest, I look at the schedule. They're not going to San Francisco and winning, especially on a short week. You know, I don't think they're going down to Miami and winning. I do think Miami's going to be good, and I still think early enough in the season, Tua is going to be healthy. They're not going to Buffalo and winning. Okay,
No.
sure, they'll beat the Commanders.
Raiders, can they go into Las Vegas?
I'll be biased. They're losing to the Jets.
They should lose them.
Yeah, they'll beat the Raiders. They're not.
You got the Rams.
I
Do you think the Rams late in the year?
I think they'll go 0-2 against the Cowboys.
Oof.
Because I think the Cowboys will sneak one out opening day, and they're not winning in Dallas. Okay, Washington they'll beat. New England they should beat. Green Bay they should beat.
Rams.
The Saints they're not winning in the Superdome. The Eagles are losing on Christmas. I think the Rams can absolutely win that game. I think the Rams are going to be decent. I don't think the Rams of last year are what you're going to get again. I think they'll be a decent team. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to be 12-5 and Super Bowl contenders, but the Rams will be a 500 team.
Okay, I can see that.
As long as Stafford's around. The problem is I only really could squeeze out 6 wins. It's Arizona, Seattle, the Commanders, the Commanders again, New England, Green Bay. They could go 0-4 to end the season. Saints, Eagles, Rams, Eagles. They really could go 0-4 to end the year.
I think the Eagles, 2 out of the last 3 weeks definitely hurts them.
It kills them.
Yeah.
It kills them.
But maybe,
especially if the Eagles are playing for top seed, though.
right, but if they're not, that's their, let's say if they have it locked up and
I guess
maybe they'll beat them once.
Okay, that could change something. The last week could be a 50-50 game because
right, maybe they beat them once.
Are wrapped up. But
I guess you could make the point before I get to Brad and a few other comments that because the Giants also play a lot of the road games early, maybe that hurts them, kind of like
they could absolutely flounder early because of all those road games. Absolutely.
That's a lot of road games, and I think of the Islanders last season played all those road games away, and they never recovered. So it remains to be
physically,
seen.
I think, and mental. I think for a team to be on the road every week, that's got to be rough.
Yeah, no, definitely, no question about it. Before I get to the Brew Force, and John Gonzalez says, "Don't worry about Tua. They have Mike White." The Saints are my sleeper team. You know what? I kind of think the same because in that division, you just think about it, process of elimination. The Falcons. Brad's obviously favorite team, right? Wink, wink in the NFC South, right? Because they're always the NFL purgatory. The 7-win, they're always around 7 wins, right? We talked about that, Brad, the last couple of years. So, okay, pencil them in there. Tampa, we think, right, takes a step back. And obviously, they have no Brady. They won 8 last year, struggled to get there. Obviously, Carolina, I guess, is kind of retooling, and that would leave New Orleans with a new quarterback, and they're obviously looking to bounce back after back-to-back, I think, losing seasons for the first time in over a decade, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe by process of elimination, I would think that New Orleans could win the NFC South. And, yep, we talked about that, John. Giants have 7 games on the road in the first 10 weeks of the season, which is the first time that's happened since 1990, which is
And
like...
they're against good, and they're against good teams
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Say for Arizona and Vegas, they're against.
But you got
teams.
Buffalo, you got Miami, you've got San Francisco. These are like tough teams. These are teams that you could easily see them losing all of them and not even putting up a fight.
To be quite honest, Vegas can be a flip of the coin too. Because what if they party too much?
Well, yes, and Vegas certainly
it's on the road. It's
right.
No matter what.
So the brute force. I mean, obviously, you heard the guys conversely talk about the Giants, and I mean, where do you fall on this Giants team? I mean, their schedule arguably might even be tougher than the Jets, and they were a team that squeaked out 9 wins. And where do they fall on the side of the coin without giving it away for later in the year?
Yeah, I got to go back to what I normally do, and that's disagreeing with John Gonzalez. I think he's wrong, and I actually veer more towards Justin Gianelli. I have it at 7. I think that the Giants are going to win 7 games, and they are going to, fall very short of not only the playoffs but obviously the division. I don't see a lot of really great favorable matchups for them. You guys mentioned a bunch of them. I think Justin laid out a lot of their wins. I don't even know if they're going to beat the Commanders twice. I'll be honest with you. They normally have trouble doing that. So I wouldn't even be convinced on that. I did give them the win against the Rams late in the season, but I don't think they're going to do that well against their own division, and that's a recipe for disaster, considering that the rest of their non-conference schedule, besides a couple of teams like the Panthers you mentioned, and I don't even think the Seahawks is a great game for them either. I think they might lose that game. So, I don't really think there's someone specific that they're really going to be favored that big by. So, I don't think the Commanders are that bad. I mean, I know they're not good, but I don't think they're that bad to the point where they won't give the Giants a fight in at least one of those 2 games. So,
now if you'll give them a fight, I think what John's saying is that he doesn't think they're going to win the games. I think there's a difference.
Okay, but either way, I have them at 7. And, I think that's also giving credit to some of those teams like Justin mentioned. I think the Rams could be a 500 team. I think the Seahawks are going to win more than they lose this year again. San Francisco, I think there's a lot of teams in the NFC that will win games, and therefore there are a lot of games that the Giants are going to have that they're not going to win. So I think they're at 7, and I'll add this little nugget in before I get to my other teams that we want to talk about. Okay.
Sure.
Because I agree with John about the Eagles. I think they're 13 is minimum for them. I think they might win 14, to be honest with you. But I got the Cowboys at 9-8. I think the Cowboys are going to be a 500 team this year. Their schedule is nothing to be sneezed at either. I mean, I don't think they're beating the Eagles. I think the Jets get them early in the season. I think there's a lot of teams.
Their schedule's 9th, by the way. They have the 9th toughest schedule in the league.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are a bad game. They have a lot of iffy games, like questionable games. And I think that they will finish at 9 wins. They'll be a 500 team. So I think the Eagles are going to win this division quite easily, to be honest with you.
Will Geno Smith repeat last year's performance? Yeah, I mean, I think that's almost impossible. I would completely agree with that 1,000%. I mean,
I think the Seahawks are going to be a solid team, though.
What's that?
They had a really good offseason. They had a good draft.
Yeah, I mean, but
do you believe?
I definitely think that based on the division process of elimination, as I'm watching the Lakers get a big lead, and speaking of John Gonzalez, Bad Bunny was just about to kiss Kendall Jenner there, but here nor there. That'll be for the wrestling. No, he tried to get one in. It didn't look like she was going for it, but can't blame her on that one. But, I mean, obviously, again, Seahawks, yeah, I mean, I think based on that division, yeah, they should be where they went 9 last year. I can see them getting 9 again, maybe between 8 and 10. Yeah, the Rams, I think Justin had them right around 500, so they'll be in the cluster of that. But Yeah, I mean, we'll wind up seeing that. But and also one more thing before I get to Brad one more time. I agree with the Chris that the Seahawks had a great draft. Yeah, the Seahawks definitely, and they're a good franchise. They've been kind of a good franchise for a long time. They're a model franchise. They've had, you think about the last 15 years, they've been a pretty consistent franchise. They retooled pretty quickly, and I mean, again, Geno Smith has far more success than Russell Wilson did. So I think that's a question mark to see. What will Russell Wilson do with Sean Payton? I think conversely, Smith, will Russell Wilson repeat the same performance? But Brad, I do want to get to you before I move on to a few other miscellaneous thoughts and then come back to you one more time before we close tonight. You talked about, I think, one of the teams that we certainly love here on Sportswire, that is the Detroit Lions. And the Detroit Lions, I think, have a very good schedule this year, and I think they are ripe to win that NFC North Division. And for those that are listening and watching, tell us why. I know that one of the teams you're thinking about is going to also get to double digits and maybe even a game or two more is those Detroit Lions.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, when it comes to confidence, all right, I talked about confidence with the Jets, but I don't know if there's going to be any more team this week that I'm going to talk confidence with when it comes to the Detroit Lions. I have the Detroit Lions at minimum winning 11 games. I think they are going to show you.
They're opening up the NFL season. Like, has the Lions ever opened up?
No, I mean, listen, I'm proud of those Lions, all right? They deserve to be in that game. And I know they're not favored, and I know they're going to lose that game. Okay, but
you just talked about how much you love the Lions, but they're going to lose.
They're going to lose to the Chiefs week one. Everyone knows that. Okay, but with that being said, I think they're going to dominate the Bears. I think that they're going to dominate.
They're going to crush the Bears. Yeah.
They're going to beat those two teams up pretty good, in my opinion. And I think their offense is still powerful, but I think they really improved defensively, especially at those corner and safety positions. They really improved. And their line is not terrible. So I think that they're going to have a 11-win season at the minimum, I would say. But you saw, and again, I actually have Uncle Rob coming at the end of the month to New York. And I'm sure he'll have something to say about this. But the Minnesota Vikings and the Lions actually play each other 2 of the last 3 weeks.
I see that.
Twice in the last 3 weeks, which I think is crazy that they, couldn't spread that out. But that'll make for good entertainment.
The Eagles played 2 times also in 3 weeks.
That's going to make for good entertainment because I think those games are going to mean something. I think both of those teams are going to be colliding right for that division at that time. And I think those games are going to be meaning a lot. So I have the Lions winning 11 and the Vikings winning 10, which means those Detroit Lions are going to win the division. All right, that is what I'm going to say. And I think they're going to do it by a game. It'll be a close race between them and the Vikings. Now, I got to talk about one more team, Tom. All right, and I know. Oh, John Gonzalez, yes. All right, I like
it. It's funny. I was like, I guess I'm in between 11 and 12. I have them with at least 11.
I think it's a safe 11. I think they're going to win 11.
I agree on that.
Now I got to talk about this team just to make Tom Bryce smile because I know I was a little harsh on them last year. I actually remember I predicted 4-13 for the Steelers last year. Okay, and I was brutally wrong. All right, brutally wrong. Okay, I was obviously wrong. Okay, but I'm going to say this. I went through the Steelers' schedule for you, Tom.
It's 19th, by the way, so it's middle of the road.
Yeah, I went through the Steelers' schedule just for you.
All right, what about?
I hate to say it. I don't like to say this, but I think they're going to finish 9-8, and they're going to be over 500 again. I do think they're going to find 9 wins. All right, 9-8. But unfortunately, Tom, I'll make you smile by being happy that they'll be over 500. But I will crash your party by saying
make the playoffs, right?
But they will not make the playoffs because 9-8 is not going to get a playoff berth in the AFC.
Well, the last 4 years, the Steelers either missed the playoffs on the last day or made the playoffs on the last day, right? Is it 3 of the last 4 years, I think, or something like that?
Yes, I do think that they'll fall behind. A lot of those AFC East teams like the Dolphins obviously will be there. The Bills, obviously the Jets, all those 3 of those teams, I think, will make the playoffs. I think you talk about the 2 teams in their division, Cincinnati and Baltimore, I think end up being ahead of them. And then I think, you have the Chiefs and the Chargers out west. And, the Broncos.
Anastasia Rizzi, a huge Chargers fan. Huge Chargers fan.
I think the Chargers and Broncos will fight with the Steelers. kind of at the end of the line. Maybe the Raiders put their hat in there a little bit, but
I don't know about the Raiders. I think the Raiders are a little below the Chargers and the Broncos.
I
think
agree.
I do agree with you that there's like not much of a separation when you think about the A. Like John also posted just now, the AFC is difficult. I do think that there's like a cluster of teams, and the Steelers are in that cluster. I mean, I look at the Steelers' schedule and
tough schedule. Yeah, it's not an easy schedule. Pittsburgh.
No.
Even with the tough schedule, I scratched out 9 wins for them.
I think they're going to get 9 because I do think that Kenny Pickett is going to continue to build off the way he played in the last 5 or 6 games of the season, and I think that defense, and they're always well coached. And looking at their schedule, I don't want to go through it, but I'll do it for the interest of fun. I mean, I really don't want to do it, but I'd say San Francisco 0-1, 1-1 Browns. I think they claw out a win against the Raiders, 2-1. Texans 3-1. I'd say Steelers, Rams. Steelers, I'd say 4-2. I think they'll get one of those 2. I think they lose to Jacksonville. I think they beat Tennessee. I think they beat Green Bay. They probably lose in Cleveland. Lose against the Bengals. They beat the Cardinals. I think they'll beat New England. They'll beat the Colts. Probably lose again to Cincinnati. And I think they'll scratch out maybe that win in Seattle. I think they get 10, maybe 10. I'd say 9, between 9 and 10.
I got 9 and 8 out of the Steelers.
Yeah, I think they're going to get between 9 and 10.
9 and 8.
They always win 9. They win 8 or more. It's what, 19 straight seasons or something like that? 18, 19 straight years? It's been.
No, they have to win. They have to win 9 games.
Yeah. 2003 was the last time they had a losing season.
They will not be in the playoffs. That I'll say with confidence too. They will not be in the playoffs.
I couldn't say that, not even being a homer, because like looking at that schedule, I know it's so early. Like I don't know. I don't know where they're going to end.
Although honestly, Tom, knowing the Steelers too, maybe we should say 8-1 because they like to tie too. So
yeah, 9-7. Yeah, they've done ties a lot. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good one. Yeah, I don't know. It's way too early. This is going to be one of those if you're a political fan, they're a swing state. The Steelers are the ultimate swing team in the NFL. They always win just enough to be in or bit in out. I think it's those 19 straight winning seasons that I feel confident on.
Well, here's the question before you go on. Sure. Look at that AFC North. What team is going to be below 500?
Cleveland, maybe 8. Cleveland.
I like the Browns better than Pittsburgh, to be honest.
No, but Cleveland's going to Cleveland and they'll crap out.
I would say, though, I would say of those 4 teams, what do you think? There's only separated by 3 games at most? 4? They're not separated by 7 games. Like Brad, you spoke about the Eagles, right? And the Eagles and Commanders, there's a wide gap, right? I mean, you think about the Lions and probably the Packers this year. There's going to be, I would imagine, a wide gap. There are certain teams with a gap. You might even say this year for the first time, Jacksonville and Houston's a wide gap, right? Or the Colts. But I don't feel like in that division, because those 4 teams are all bunched up. They're almost like what Chris Berman used to be
the closest division 1 through 4.
Exactly. It's almost like
at least.
They're almost like a hockey division. It's almost like what Chris Berman used to call the NFC Central at the time, the North, right? Yeah, and it's almost like those 4 teams. They're going to be bunched up. They're just, And John Gonzalez has a few comments here before I throw out a few other not local, but holiday and primetime games. Bengals are solid. Cleveland bouncing back. Ravens are good. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think we all kind of think the same. Packers are in trouble. Love is a hot mess. Yeah, I think the Bears and Packers are going to just have bad years.
I don't think. I think you're underselling Jordan Love a little bit here. I actually do think he's going to be a pretty good quarterback. I do.
I agree.
The Bears will be interesting because I think Fields will have a good season.
They'll score points. Yeah, they'll score points.
The team, I think they're still learning. I think the NFC. To me, the NFC North. The Vikings are going to win by at least 2-3 games. I think the Vikings are going to be really good this year. They upgraded on defense. They got rid of Ed Donatel, their horrendous defensive coordinator. So I think their defense is going to be good. And their offense, to me, adding what's his name? Who was that receiver that they drafted first round? To go with Jefferson.
Johnson?
Yes.
Quentin Johnson, right?
Quentin Johnson. They got now the duo with Johnson and Jefferson. They're going to be great. And I disagree with that. Kirk Cousins is better. I would take Kirk Cousins over Jared Goff. Let's get a reality check here. The Lions are overrated.
Vikings, though, they've
Oh
shown
my
themselves
God.
to be,
On this show. We got a lot of Lions supporters. Remember that.
Bombs tonight.
Listen,
Yeah.
the NFL schedule makers had the Bills, the Bengals, and the Eagles to choose from for opening night, and they chose the Lions.
They deserved it.
And they chose the Cowboys
So
last
what?
year
That
against the
team missed
Bucks.
the playoffs last year. They didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah, but they beat
They
the
were right
Packers.
there.
and won
They
the
were right
season.
there. They were this close. And they started off, 1-5?
Still
1-5,
missed the
1-6?
Still missed the postseason.
1-6.
Yeah, come on. Like, listen, I'm not going to hear that stuff. All right? I'm not going to hear that stuff. Go Lions. Go Lions.
Yeah, the Vikings, you know what? I mean, we spoke about the Vikings last year. I know they won a lot of games, but they had the worst point differential for a double-digit win
I
team.
think their defense will be because their defense was a mess.
When we spoke about Cousins on Sportzwire a lot,
will get cleaned up, and I think
Maybe.
that was their underlying issue last year. If you watch the Giants Vikings postseason game, the defense was the issue. Cousins on offense played just fine. You know, the offense was
he wasn't terrible, but like
plenty
he never
good.
wins.
He
in a
had great.
big
No,
spot.
he had great numbers. Jefferson got his, and the defense was dreadful. The defense will improve this year. I think they're going to be. I'll give them the third best odds in the NFC to come out and represent the Super Bowl.
I don't know, maybe.
I'll give Philly one. I'll still give San Francisco two. I don't give anybody in the South a pass for third. I think they'll be the best team in the North. And listen,
I do think
I
that
got the Lions at 9. I got the Lions at 9-8. I do think they're starting 0-2 before they go on a nice run to go like 4-2, 4-2, 5-2 or whatever like that. But I think then playing Minnesota 2 out of the last 3, I don't.
Well,
like
that
I don't like that for the Lions.
But I do think that those 2 games are going to decide where they go. If they're in the playoffs or not, I think that is an absolute fair statement. Do I think that the Vikings?
To me, that's going to be the true separator.
Absolutely.
Between,
That
why I
think
think the Vikings win the division.
That I agree.
Because I think they
1,000%
can
with
carry.
you
I
on.
think they could win those games.
Yeah, I think that those are fair points here. And just before I get to Brad and Dolan time, before I get to closing thoughts here, NFL has 5 international games this year. Also, 2 of them are in Germany. So certainly if you're out there in Germany, you get a chance to see some NFL football. Also, games of note: Eagles, 49ers, December 3rd, Chiefs, Bengals, New Year's Eve. So if you're going to watch the ball drop, you have a chance to watch Chiefs, Bengals before that.
Real quick.
Sure.
Who was the idiot that took Dolphins Chiefs and put it in, I think, Germany? Who was the idiot that took Tyreek Hill's return to Arrowhead and moved it across the pond?
I got to think.
Right? Just absolutely.
No, I don't know if I feel like either I spoke about this before on Sportswire or maybe one of the wrestlers I had on might have mentioned this overseas, but I think they do these things based on like who's the most popular overseas, if I'm not mistaken. Like the Jaguars have 2 games this year in overseas, and apparently they're actually like the most popular team overseas.
Well, they've had the constant one home game every year. So
and the owner of the Jaguars, who is the Khan family, which owns All Elite Wrestling, they also own the football team there. So in the real football, they're not real, but the football around the world. So I mean, maybe that has something to do with it. Also, we get a triple header on Christmas Day, so you get a chance to open up gifts, or maybe if you don't want to go to the movies, you actually can watch 3 games of note. So that's interesting. And Giants are on there as well against the Eagles, 4:30. So those are some other interesting games of note. Also, I have here Rams 49ers Christmas night. Also, Chiefs Raiders 1 p.m. on Christmas. Kind of an odd, right? Raiders Chiefs 1 o'clock. But actually, that goes back to old history. Also, Thanksgiving, we get a triple header. Packers Lions, of course.
I'm excited for Thanksgiving. That's gonna be a good Thanksgiving.
Finally, that's gonna finally be a good one. You got Giants Commanders. You have that also, and Seahawks and 49ers. Although I feel like I'm missing something. Dallas should have been on my notes for Thanksgiving. Maybe am I missing something there? Is Dallas?
Washington.
Okay, that's what it is. Yeah. Okay, Cowboys, Commanders, and then we have Seahawks, 49ers on
And
Thanksgiving.
Detroit plays Green Bay.
Yes.
Yep, I have that.
It's gonna be
Yep.
a great Thanksgiving, Chris. Great Thanksgiving.
Well, that's going to be good. That I'm looking forward to. Also, the games overseas, Chiefs, Dolphins, as Justin pointed out, on November
Just
5th.
gonna be like I told you.
Titans, Rams, I have October 15th. Patriots, Colts, November the 12th. Jaguars play the Falcons and the Bills. So you see, got the Bills and Jaguars. Tom Brady is going to be honored by the Patriots on opening week on September the 10th. So that'll be interesting to see him back there in Foxborough.
They put Patriots Colts overseas because you couldn't pay Americans to watch that game.
Yeah, you know what? That is going to be a pitiful
And that one
match.
overseas.
That I will say, and that I will not disagree with you at
What
all.
about Texans Titans? Send that one too. Right?
That would certainly be on my list. Also, we have 3 Monday night doubleheaders this year, so that's kind of a cool note. 3, and I'm sure we'll get a schedule on the Manning cast and everything else. Also, John Gonzalez has a couple more things here before we move on. I don't like these games in Europe. Leave soccer in Europe. The NFL belongs in America. Yeah, but you know, I'm going to say it maybe because I'm a homer, and obviously we have so many supporters around the world because of our wrestling coverage, and they have taken a liking to the NFL game. I've actually spoken with.
Which brings me to this, which I don't know. I don't think we discussed. We got the Mets and Phillies in London next year.
Yep.
Listen, I like the idea of going to London, of the MLB games in London. Not the Mets, please. I don't want the Mets overseas.
We had Yankees Red Sox in London back in 2019. That was.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that either. Also, yeah,
I feel like it's the same thing though, and I'll have to ask somebody on this when I get the chance. It's probably based on popularity. Mets and Phillies, and we might guess.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing you maybe can ask because you talk to people overseas.
Yep,
in London,
I do. Yeah, we have a lot of people there.
What is the popularity level of baseball over there? I understand.
Well,
football.
that I can add.
I understand the popularity of football overseas and what the London games have done for the popularity of the NFL. But what is the popularity level of baseball over there?
See, I've had this and I want to get to Brad. I really do want to get to Brad in a second. I know I've spoken with some of the wrestlers on the air and off the air about this, that the basketball is actually gotten popular in London and England. The NFL game has gotten really popular the last 5 or 6 years, and people actually really love going to these games. It's actually become a thing. And I actually interviewed a tag team which is really big in England, and they actually were American football players. They were one of the few that were American football players. They're rabid NFL fans. Yeah. So there's actually a growing movement there with that. But baseball, I can ask. Maybe I'll do that the next week.
Because think about it. Like you said, basketball and football has gotten. England likes cricket. England likes football, like soccer. What we call soccer.
Yep,
that's their sport over there. I just wonder how much does baseball truly resonate. I know Great Britain was in the World Baseball Classic, but really, how much does baseball really resonate over there? That's what I would like to know.
That's a question I can ask because we have at least on average 3 to 4 people overseas over the week.
Yeah, so I'd love to know what you find out.
I'll tell you what, Friday show, remind me next Friday, and I might have an answer for it because I'll obviously be able.
With football, we spoke to one of the big Jet fans that we're friends with on Twitter, this guy Gus. We had him on a while back, and he said football is huge or bigger, much bigger in Germany than it is in England.
Well, I have an answer for you on that. Do you remember the old World League?
Yes.
The NFL Europe.
Yeah.
The World League goes back.
I think Warner played over there.
Yeah, he did.
Actually, for the wrestling fans, it was actually somebody many, many years ago who played in the World League before NFL Europe. Goldberg actually played in the World League. So it's out there on eBay. His football card from the World League is out there. So I could certainly see that. But I want to move on because it's getting to that time. And I know this is going to be a tough one because this is technically the last playoff edition of Dolan Time. And Brad, I know it's been tough tonight. You've certainly had, to kind of put a lot of thought into this and compose yourself. We're not going to get that Knicks Celtics Eastern Conference Finals that you were dreaming about. Maybe Matt Hurt was, Alec Willis, but certainly was a disappointing end to, I think, still what Anthony Finkel said at the top of the show, a good season. Definitely was a winnable game tonight, and but for reasons we spoke about, it wasn't a win. And for the last time, playoff edition wise, it's Dolan Time. The Brute Force, Brad Weiss.
Yeah, so let's put Dolan Time one final time for this season, and then we'll take a break from Dolan Time, which I definitely need when it comes to these Knicks. All right, but let's start on a positive note before I get to all the negatives. Okay, so let's start on a positive note and say that obviously it was a successful season. The New York Knicks were not expected to get to the second round, right? Have a home playoff advantage, and certainly. Listen, I know that they beat an inexperienced Cavaliers team in the first round, which some people will say, well, you kind of just squeaked. You got by a team that really wasn't experienced like you. Sure, but it's still a series win. Then you played an experienced Miami Heat team, and I think you're just not ready for a team like that yet. I think that a lot of it has to do with the personnel on the team, which I will get to in a second. But the New York Knicks had a good season. Okay, Jalen Brunson obviously was something special. He deserved every penny of his contract. He's been a big free agent acquisition and obviously our best player. So it's a big thing for the Knicks to have a guy like Brunson on the team. First time in a long time, as I said, on multiple occasions.
And he was one of the top playoff scorers throughout the entire league this year. He should
have been an all-star.
30-point games in this series, by the way.
Yeah, he should have been an all-star. He could have even been consideration for
all-team player. I mean, that's a disgrace.
Yeah, I honestly think he should have gotten it over the other guy who was on it from the Knicks, who I'll get to in a second. Okay, but listen, I'm obviously disappointed with the Knicks and losing, but the Miami Heat are a team who have been in the finals only a few years ago, who were in the Eastern Conference Finals and a basket away from being in the finals again. In the past year. So they are a team that knows how to win at this time of year. And, it was a tough matchup for the Knicks, but obviously disappointing the way it ended. Now, let me get back to the negative side of things, which is the side that I'm familiar with when it comes to Dolan time. All right. Let's start with the biggest culprit of all, okay, that I have ranted and raved all over time since he's been a New York Knick. And it's time to send his hoorah and his bags to some other team, because I am done with Julius Randle. This is it. This better be it, because if I see him on the Knicks, honestly, Tom Bryce, I don't even know if I'm going to root for the Knicks next year if he's on the team. Okay,
really? Okay, that's a hot take, Brad. That is a big hot take.
Because he is a cancer to the team. Okay, you could just tell when things don't go his way. He pouts, he cries, he moans.
Did you hear his post-game comments? I think it was off Game 3, the game where all the benches almost cleared.
Where he said basically that they worked harder than us, so they I mean, really? Like, you're telling the media that they played harder than casually. On top of that, they just played harder than us. What do you mean, Julius Randle? Like, why are you letting that happen? Why are you saying? How are you saying that in the playoffs that a team is playing harder than you? Right, and you're the guy who's on the court. You're the guy that's supposed to be one of the leaders of the team, and you have the audacity to say that. I mean, listen, this guy, when it comes to, first of all, his shooting in the playoffs, my God. I mean, I was listening to a guy talking about statistics. Julius Randle ranks one of the worst players in playoff field goal percentage, playoff efficiency, playoff three-point, all the categories on offense, for the most part, turnovers. He's one of the worst players in the playoffs. Statistically, right? He is horrible. He is not efficient, okay? He's out there, and guess what, Tom? He's not efficient on offense, nor is he efficient on defense, right? And that's Tom Thibodeau's thing. And he keeps them out there, and you should watch his closeouts. Look at his closeouts against Jimmy Butler at the end of the game. You'd think he'd be playing a regular season game that doesn't matter. I mean, Julius Randle is not the leader and not the guy we should have in New York City. He is not built for this. He can do all he wants in the regular season, okay? But when the lights shine brightest, okay, the biggest moments come, this guy cannot come through, and he's proven it for years. And now it's time to get rid of him. Okay, I'm done with Julius Randle.
Well, if you're going to go to the next level, I mean, tonight was not a moment that you wanted from a guy who averaged 25 and 10 this year. This was not.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Tom. Like, we're talking about just tonight, right? I'm talking about the whole playoffs. I mean, he maybe had a few moments, right, in a quarter.
He was good in game two. He was good in game
Right.
two.
But again, like, he's not a good enough player for you to trust him as their number 2 option on the team. He does not come through when it matters. He does not make the big plays.
Now, that's what you said was the reason the Knicks lost tonight. They didn't even have a second nor third option tonight. It was one option.
They had one option. And when you have a guy like Randall who's making the money that he's making, he better be the second option, and he's simply not. Then you go to a guy who we decided to keep, to not trade for Donovan Mitchell, and that's R.J. Barrett. Okay, he had a good postseason. I'm not going to say that he was horrible the whole postseason, like I think Randall was, for the most part, horrible. Okay, but when again the lights shine brightest, the biggest moments, the biggest games, when the pressure was on him, Tom Bryce, in this game especially, these are games that Knicks fans are going to remember. When you have this much pressure on you to show up and you epically fail this bet. He shot like 1 for 12 today. 1 for 12, right? He scored like 10 points.
What were the Knicks from 3 after the hot start? They shot, like 5 for 30 or something
right,
like that?
Which, again, is another issue I'm going to address here in a second. Don't worry, I got it. All right, so listen. R.J. Barrett is not a player you can trust offensively. He's not consistent, okay? He only goes left, okay? His jump shot is not great, okay? He's not a guy you can trust if you want to be a team that makes it further than a second-round appearance. It's not going to happen against the better teams like the Heat, like the Celtics, like the 76ers, like the Bucks. These teams have shooters on the wings and guys who can defend. We don't. And as Tom just said, and I was going to get to it, we don't have any shooting. Quentin Grimes is supposed to be the guy making shots. He couldn't make nothing. You saw his last shot, Tom Bryce? He airballed 6 feet left and 6 feet forward. I mean, he wasn't even close.
I mean, the Heat intentionally gave him that. They're like, here, just.
Yeah, and listen, and this is where I get to the guy who I must address. Okay, and I know I'm a coach, and I know I'm just as hard on myself as anyone else when it comes to bad decisions. But Tom Thibodeau deserves a lot of the heat, literally the heat. Okay, the team, right? When it comes to what happened with the Knicks. Ladies and gentlemen, basketball is a game of adjustments. You cannot continue to lose the same way over and over, okay? It's obvious, Tom Bryce, okay? You saw when Randall was out of the game in one of the earlier games in the series that the Knicks played better with Toppin on the floor, okay? Yep. You saw at times when Randall, and you don't see this enough, where Randall and Toppin should be able to play together instead of playing Robinson and Hartenstein, who give you nothing offensively, okay? And barely anything defensively against Bam Adebayo this series anyway. Okay?
No, Adebayo had his own, especially tonight. He
was cooking the Knicks all series, okay? Listen, and then you got guys like, and I hate to defend this guy because I've been a critic of his too. A guy like Evan Fournier who can shoot, right? That's the one thing we kept talking about. Oh, the Knicks can't make shots. Oh, the Knicks can't make threes. He can shoot. Can we give him a chance, for God's sake?
I was going to say, was he on a milk carton in this series?
He was sick for one game. I mean, you're telling me that when we couldn't make threes tonight that you couldn't give him a chance? Quentin Grimes couldn't hit the rim, for God's sake. Give him a chance, all right? I know that it might compromise the defense, okay? But at the same time, Tom Bryce, the Knicks were terrible this entire series offensively, besides for one player. Jalen Brunson, he was the only one who was consistent offensively throughout this series, and even he had struggles at times. So listen, when it comes to the Knicks in my final statement, Tom Thibodeau, okay, deserves a lot of heat with his decision-making, with the guys that he puts on the floor, right? He gives Randall all these minutes to play like garbage, okay? He doesn't hold him accountable enough, okay, amongst other guys, okay? The Knicks need some change in identity when it comes to, okay, shooting the ball from the perimeter, right? They have a defensive identity, but offensively, they got to be better. And I hate to say it, Tom Bryce, I say Randall's got to be traded, okay? But I'll say something else. And I know Justin Gianelli will roll his eyes at me, but it's okay. The Knicks need to be super, super aggressive for Damian Lillard right now. They need to begin the quest for Damian Lillard immediately. They blew the chance to get Donovan Mitchell, and they would have been better with him in a series like this. They needed offense, okay? But listen, I know we have Jalen Brunson, okay? And people are saying, well, we already have a point guard. Well, guess what? We need a scorer, Tom Bryce. We need a guy who can score in the big moments when it matters, right? Will show up and help Jalen Brunson, and that is not Julius Randle. That will not be R.J. Barrett. That will not be anyone else on the roster, okay? We need that guy, and the only guy that most people will think of, okay, is, of course, Damian Lillard, who we think we need. And I'll say this. I'm actually, you guys, as you're watching the Lakers right now.
I'm watching it, yep.
Okay? If the Lakers decide, and this would be dumb in my opinion, if the Lakers decide to sign Kyrie Irving, okay, next season to be their point guard, as a consolation prize, I wouldn't mind D'Angelo Russell either.
I think going there. I knew you were going there.
A consolation prize for the New York Knicks, who desperately need somebody, right, to play alongside Jalen Brunson.
I think the problem with Russell is it's a little too redundant to what Brunson does. Same goes for Damian Lillard. They're not fits on the Knicks. They need a wing. They need, if you're going to get rid of Randall, you need somebody replace somebody at the 4. Maybe even upgrade over Mitchell Robinson at the 5. I think where the work needs to be done for the Knicks is the big men. That's where I think it needs
I agree with you that the big men
to me, Lillard and Russell are too redundant for what the Knicks have right now, especially with, we've seen some good stuff out of Quentin Grimes. Obviously, Josh Hart's a really good player, right? But
when they got Hart, they became a better team. I think
they did. For sure they did. But to me, having 2 scoring point guards is a little too redundant, and I don't know that them coexisting in the backcourt would exactly work the best. So look at the market for big men, and I think that's how the Knicks can really upgrade their team.
I agree with you. I think we need an upgrade there, and that the names automatically come to my mind. Although I think he'll stay in Phoenix, but DeAndre Ayton maybe as a potential guy. And also, I'm blanking on his name right now, but the Indiana Pacers big man who was going to – correct. I think he's a guy who we could look
more realistic, although I would not be surprised if Ayton ends up shaking loose and that trade becomes an option. I would not be shocked.
Yeah, trade Randle to Phoenix. Listen, I will not stand another season of Julius Randle. It's enough. He's not ready for this moment. He can't be here anymore.
The problem is, despite his numbers and what things look on the surface should be an attractive piece. Like there are plenty of things on the surface that makes Julius Randle an attractive option for an acquiring team. The problem is there's too many either off the court or
Yeah, hearing some of his comments
not attractive, and I just don't know who's going to want him. So you're going to have to hope for. So you might have to deal with
someone, please.
You might have to deal with one more season of Julius Randle before the player option kicks. Before the player option, he turns it down. He thinks he can get more money, and then guess what? It's hasta la vista. You're out of here because we're not paying you more than what you're already making.
Well, that I think that's a fair point. I mean, the only thing I'll say before
I just worry about who's gonna want him.
I will say this before we move on to closing thoughts. The Knicks definitely, and I had people message me about this, they definitely need another option. Randle may not be the guy, but I almost, in looking at Randle in a twisted way, it reminds me of a couple of years ago when the Mets had Javi Baez. When on paper, the numbers look good, but then when you watch him on a day-in-and-day basis, some of the things he said, obviously Randle, not as bad as what Baez said to the Met fans, but I see the similarities there a little bit. But this Knicks team definitely fell short. There were a number of reasons, as they will be on the golf course, as I said at the beginning of the show, and the Golden State Warriors are also about to join
They're heading
the
there.
New
It's
York
part.
Knicks.
If you're a Laker fan, it's party time.
No, I think it's definitely going to be party time because this game's over here, and the Lakers are going to be back in the conference finals. The Nuggets and the Lakers, and the Nuggets back in the conference finals here. Does not happen too often that the Denver Nuggets are this close of winning an NBA championship or Western
The only
Conference.
thing I'll quickly say on that is that it's pretty crazy. I actually saw this, that the last 3 appearances that the Nuggets have played the Lakers in the playoffs, the Lakers have won every series. So
I was going to say,
if there's anyone that the Nuggets probably actually didn't want to play, surprisingly, it actually might be the Lakers just because of their prior history. But that's going to be a tremendous series, Tom, with whoever Miami plays in that Boston-Philadelphia series. They're going to be 2 really good series.
definitely, and we'll definitely talk about that. Obviously, next week on the show, we'll recap where we go. We'll see if it's either Boston, Philadelphia again, a Game 7. It always seems like that happens throughout NBA history, and obviously, we'll see the Nuggets and the Lakers again. Really interesting conference finals for a lot of different reasons. So we'll see if Denver does get there, but the Lakers look really good right now, so we'll have to see. It'll be a very intriguing matchup. They're up in Denver, but we'll see what happens there. But let's move on to closing thoughts here. Chris, I'm going to go with you. Going to give you the floor. Obviously, looking forward to hearing what Mr. Andrew Golden has to say with you guys here this weekend. We'll play it in the rotation, and looking forward to continuing to have the Talking Rivals, and enjoyed what you guys were talking about here this week. So I'm going to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, saying? Floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom. Guys, great show as always. Big win for the Yankees tonight, coming back. They needed it after losing last night. Hopefully they can win the next 2 against Tampa. Try to stay with them for a while if they can. But we'll be catching up on everything that happened this weekend on Talking Rivals with Patrick. He'll be filling us in about Boston. And then Wednesday or Thursday, me and Charmin will be talking Jets on the Liftoff Jets. And we actually, our episode that we recorded with Andrew is our 100th episode. I didn't mention it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But I totally forgot to say it on the show, but it was our 100th episode.
Wow, you should have said something. I would have gave you a hype up or something, but you didn't say
I know. Well, when I didn't realize it until after we recorded it, so. But
that's pretty cool. You had 100 in the books with the Talking Rivals and 100 in the books with Liftoff Jets, man. That's pretty cool there. Congratulations.
100 for Talking Rivals, I think, in about 2 more, I think.
Yeah,
like 98 or something.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool.
So, so we'll be doing that on Liftoff Jets. It'll be our 101st episode next week. We'll probably catch up on the schedule. We'll talk a little bit more because
that'll be fun.
We talk mostly about the draft picks and the undrafted guys.
Well, Andrew's always a good listen, Andrew. Yes, it was nice to see you get. I shared on Twitter. You got some great comments on the Twitter, so that was really good to see that you guys got some great comments on Andrew's show.
Definitely. You always learn a little bit when he's
Andrew. I think Andrew and when you had Coach Westhead has been really like those have just been. You've had some good ones, but certainly Andrew's at the top of the list. So I really look forward to hearing that. Obviously, Talking Rivals as well, hearing both you and Patrick talk with the Red Sox playing well, and we'll see if the Yankees can continue. So great that everybody follow Chris again, CP7NY, Instagram and Twitter. And Justin, I think you're the next guy to do an obituary. Unfortunately, post-mortem on local teams. Devils unfortunately lose in a tough fashion. Somebody asked me today, and they said, it's like 5 o'clock, and what happened with the Devils? I'm like, unfortunately, they lost in overtime, and that was kind of sad. I thought the Devils would have found a way there, but it was for not. But I'm going to let you speak on that and some other things else that you have on your mind, so I turn it over to you.
Yeah, just like Brad, I'm going to close the book on a season, and I'm going to close the book here on the Devils season, and definitely don't have as many negative points to hit at home as Brad did. Overall, I don't know how much. I don't know how much prouder I could be of this team. Franchise record 52 wins, a franchise record 112 points. It was really a special season. Jack Hughes sets the franchise record with 99 points, and that last point came on Luke Hughes' first career goal, and and that's exactly why I'm proud to be a Devils fan right now because the future is very bright. Luke Hughes. We haven't even seen Simon Nemec yet. Their pick from this past year, who played this year in the AHL. I expect to see him potentially crack the lineup. Obviously, that there's guys that unfortunately are probably not going to be back. Ryan Graves, Damon Severson, guys that are unrestricted free agents. Eric Hall is an unrestricted free agent, even though I'd like to see him back. But the defense is young, the defense is strong, and I really loved what I saw from Akira Schmid this postseason. I do think that the Devils may have found something here, and ultimately, if they choose to upgrade the goaltending position, I wouldn't mind it. But at the same, I know a lot of people are talking about, what's going to happen in Winnipeg, and that could become a teardown, and that could mean Connor Hellebuck could become available. I'm not opposed to that, but if you're telling me we're going into the season next year with Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid as essentially a 1A, 1B situation, I wouldn't have any issues with it. Same goes for the coaching staff. I know Lindy Ruff was under a lot of heat early in the season. We got off to that bad 0-2 start, the fire Lindy chance, the sorry Lindy chance. Ultimately, I'd love for the coaching staff to remain the same. I am concerned that somebody is going to pluck Andrew Burnett and make him a head coach. I'm hoping not, and maybe a little bit of a pay raise keeps him in New Jersey. But ultimately, I'd like to keep the coaching staff the same. The decisions on Timo Meyer and Jesper Brad, who are restricted free agents, that's going to be interesting to see what they end up how they end up paying those guys. But ultimately, the fact that over the next 4 years, to have Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier at a combined $15 million, I think is ultimately going to prove a steal for the organization. Because Nico's shown what a great leader he is. Jack is, fully blossomed into one of the game's best players. And I think that's really something to be excited about. Now, as for this series, obviously it was disappointing and it was tough sledding against the Carolina team, who really mirrored the Devils with their forechecking and their speed. And what the Devils were able to do to the Rangers was what the Canes were able to do to the Devils. And playing a team like the Rangers, an older, slower team, really favored the Devils, and it really exhibited itself, especially in games 5 and 7, when it came down, when it was crunch time, and when push came to shove. Anytime the Devils were able to have an attack, the Canes were able to respond, and their stretches of dominance really pushed the series in that direction, especially the first couple of games. I knew it was going to be different when we came on the air last Friday and the Devils were down 2-0 again. I knew it was going to be different than the Rangers series just because of how aggressive and how skilled Carolina is, despite missing Teravainen, Svetkov, and Pacioretty basically for the whole year. But, Carolina, and obviously we see tonight, Florida wins their series by their overtime goal.
First time in a conference final since 1996. Yep.
I would slightly lean towards Carolina, but can't count. Honestly, can't count out Florida at this point. I would be stupid to, but overall, putting a bow on the season, it's tough. I'm not even angry. I'm just sad that the ride's over because it was a fun team. It was a special team, and I'm definitely excited for some great days ahead because I really do feel like I even said in the group chat, I think we're going to be in an era where it's going to be the Rangers, the Devils, and the Hurricanes as pick your three in any order over the next few years in the Metro, and the rest of the teams are going to have to really, fight their way to try to climb up into that class. I think that's going to be the upper tier of the Metropolitan Division, and to be in that class is, it feels nice after a long stretch of some bad hockey, and it's finally paying off. The draft picks of Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes, and for somebody who saw the highest of highs as a young child to my teenage years when they were good, but not great, made the playoffs still, to the
Didn't
Stanley
go
Cup
far.
Finals, to the Stanley Cup Finals of 2012, to really the last decade of just poor hockey, and the changing of the guard between Lou to Ray Shero to now Tom Fitzgerald. The Devils, I think arrived a little early. I think they were better than a lot of people thought, and I look forward to that continuing.
Absolutely. I want everybody to follow Justin again on Instagram and Twitter at JGNelly91. And Devils still do have a great season. Certainly a lot to be proud of. First postseason series victory since 2012. And still, I think the team will have a lot to build upon. There will be some questions, but I do think that there's a core in place. And there's a product here that I think Devils fans are going to be very proud of for a long time. I think it's going to be a little different than the 2018 run. That was the last playoff team. And I have a good feeling that we'll see brighter days ahead. And we certainly didn't save the biggest for last, but we saved maybe the Brute's most rather interesting closing thoughts here. And obviously, Lakers advanced to the conference finals now officially 122-101. And I know you and Matt Hurt matched up this past weekend or coming up here this weekend, and we're going to see some of that and anything else you want to share. So it is your closing thoughts, and fire away, my friend.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for another great week of the show. Thank you, Chris and Justin, as well as Rob Morosco was here earlier, of course, for another great week of the show. You can find me on social media, Bradley Weiss on Facebook, at BradWeiss20 on Twitter, and searching at BWeiss20 and at Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram. Certainly some short closing thoughts this week. First of all, I will thank, Matt Hurd because I am going to be in his tournament for the Long Island Sound. Starting at 10 a.m. Now this morning. So I'm excited for that, certainly. They're going to run a great tournament. I'm actually going against another buddy of mine. Last week, I actually beat both Matt Hurd and Basir Hoyt, which, was a nice accomplishment.
Yeah, we were speaking about Basir. We had a conversation off the air. Yep.
I had a really nice conversation with Basir. I think he, again, has really gotten to mature. He's a great kid. You can just tell by the way he talks that he's a leader for sure.
Yep.
And I'm really proud of him because he looks like he's doing a really nice job coaching as well.
And I think he's going to be a guy that we see more of for the Golden Eagles.
I think so, too. And I'm really going to be rooting for him because I really just like the way he conducts himself.
Yeah, he follows us, and he's always been a supporter. But I know 2 years ago we saw him a little bit more in the rotation. Didn't really see him this year, but I think he's going to learn from that experience as we lose some of these upperclassmen. And I kind of think we'll see him in the rotation a little bit here.
Yeah, and for Matt's team, they were competitive. They gave us a really tough run in the first half. They actually came back from down 12 and took a lead at halftime. And he made our adjustments, and we got the win in the end. But Matt's team, again, competitive. We'll see if I see him this week. We might play them in the championship game potentially if we win. But the guy who I'm going to be playing against this weekend, actually twice in 10th grade, is Mr. Kevin O'Halloran.
Kevin O'Halloran is coaching, of all people? Old man Yeller O'Halloran is coaching?
Yep, Kevin O'Halloran is coaching. He's coaching 2 10th grade teams. I'm actually playing them both this weekend. So I'm going to be going against Big Kev. I'm excited to see him. I haven't seen him in a while. So I'll let you know how that goes. But
let us know about that because O'Halloran, I did not know he was coaching.
He's coaching. So I'm excited to go against him. But I will see, of course, Matt will be in the tournament. McNeely will be in the tournament. There'll be a couple other guys I even mentioned, next week that I'm going to be seeing. So I'm really excited for that myself. The Super Force and James D. Simone will all be there coaching my level up.
Wow. And I saw James shared a photo of you and James next to each other earlier this week.
That's right. That was at practice. So we were practicing getting ready for this tournament. So my 9th and 10th grade teams will be in action this weekend. Again, the LI Sound tournament. You can follow them at LI Sound.
Memorial Tournament, yep.
At LI Sound Basketball on Instagram. They do a great job. And again, more than honored to be a part of the tournament. It's out at Santa Mariches High School, which for the first time in a while, I'll be passing the Danzy Center where my poster is. So,
oh man,
it's been
you're never gonna let us. You're never gonna.
No.
You are never gonna let me live that down.
Until they take it down, I will not stop mentioning it.
I
So,
think it's because you've been on Sportswire all these years and you've helped that program, and in terms of how many people we spoke with, I think that's the reason why they're never taking it down. I'm convinced. I'm fully convinced.
yeah. So listen, I appreciate the love, and again, I'm really looking forward to the tournament, amongst other things. And I'll finish off by saying this, Tom. All right, let's close it out the right way. All right, say it with me. Let's go, Liberty. Let's go, Liberty. All right. By the time we speak next week, it'll be the first New York Liberty game is on Friday at 7 o'clock. So when we come on next week, we will conclude their first game. They have one more preseason game tonight.
I saw that.
And then they'll be playing next Friday against the Washington Mystics in their first game. And then they'll have a home game against the Fever. And then the following weekend, they're playing the Connecticut Sun at the Barclays Center. Saturday the 27th at 1 o'clock. And yours truly, the Brute Force, will be there. So I'm working on getting tickets, but I'm going to make it there. I'm proud to root on my Liberty. And next week, I'll be wearing Liberty colors on this show. So I cannot wait for the Liberty season. It's been the one, Tom Bryce, that I cannot, and I've been waiting for. It's been my most exciting season. I've been waiting for this.
I know. We spoke about that months ago, and we kind of felt that was going to be the team that would actually go very far, and certainly we're looking forward to that, and obviously talking about the Liberty in the season ahead. So very, very excited about that. And also, Lakers go to their 24th now conference final, also most in NBA history. So they're 19-4 in finals currently. So who would have guessed that? If the Celtics have to be second, if they win, I'm sure they got to have like 22 because they've won so many champions. Celtics should be number one. It must be Western Conference because the Celtics have been to like.
Well, the Lakers and the Celtics have the same amount of titles. They're both 17. They both have 17 titles.
Okay, but I would have thought the Celtics would have been to the finals more than the Lakers, right? Or but we'll talk about that. That's if the Celtics win. And also, Vegas has beat Edmonton 4-3, so they're up 3-2 there. So they bounce back. So we'll have to see what Edmonton does there. And Edmonton also Panthers advance, as Justin pointed out, in overtime against the Maple Leafs. So congratulations to the Lakers. Congratulations to the Panthers. So we'll see what happens later on. And also, I want to make sure everybody has a happy Mother's Day. I want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. I know all the mothers out there certainly hope you have a great day. And supposed to be beautiful weather outside, so definitely make sure you get out there and enjoy it. John Gonzalez says he hates the Celtics, so that means he's not rooting for Matt Hurd and Alec Willis, so great stuff there. But yes, everybody, please, all the mothers out there do enjoy. But I want to thank everybody here for tuning in here on Sportswire Radio tonight. We were joined by Chris Pizzea of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, celebrating or about to celebrate their 100 episodes. Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, and the man who coaches our Level Up Basketball organization from our Long Island Nets, also from our SJLI Golden Eagles. He's 27th all-time in rebounds. He's at the top of the list all-time in block shots. That is the Brute Force Brad Weiss, also the coach for our Plainview Boys JV basketball team. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, the man behind Sportswire Radio. And if you are on Sportswire Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, I'm back tonight with WCE coverage. Sean Jovi, the resident rock star, RCW champion, a man you know very well, the Brute Force, and Nicholas Crenson, the new Messiah. Then Sunday, we are back with the man Matthew Forsaken from Dark Cryptic Wrestling. So a lot of good coverage. And good night to Mr. Level Up, and good night to everybody here. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. Good night, everyone, and happy Mother's Day.